We'll go ahead and start our regular meeting for the Washington City Council. Thank you for being here tonight. It's inspiring to see all of the support here for one of our first items, which is going to be to recognize the state champ Little League softball players, but we'll get to that in just a minute. But before we do that, I've got to say the day is Wednesday, August 14th, 2024. We are in the City Council chamber. Our meetings are also streamed live and archived at washingtoncity.org/meetings. It is our pleasure and our honor to have a working relationship with the Interfaith Council. And this evening, our dear friend El Shad from the Islam faith will start our meeting with prayer. Amen. Thank you, brother. I'll excuse you, and thank you for setting an appropriate tone for this evening's meeting. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council, I will make note that we do need to go to closed session this evening. That said, I do not see any other adjustments to the agenda, so I'll call for a motion to approve as outlined.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as outlined.
I have a motion by Councilman Coates, a second by Councilman Belston. All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. We'll move on to announcements. We had a wonderful Pioneer Day celebration. It was a huge success again this year. I just want to thank the Lions Club and all of the civic organizations and religious organizations who came out to make that happen. It was, in particular, it was fun to recognize Jan Harmon as the Grand Marshal. She is a remarkable woman, and I still say that if you have not tried her pomegranate jam, you have not quite lived life to the fullest just yet.
Make a comment on that?
Please.
So the 24th was a great day. It was so much fun. I loved working with the kids. I get the opportunity to hand out the coins for the little kids who win the races. And Councilman Ivey helped me on the 4th, and then on the 24th I got to do it. And I tell you, there's some fast kids in Washington City. And the best part about that race, besides the kids, so I should say the second part, is the 40 and over run. And you watch all of us old people try to run, and it's hilarious. So on the 4th, me and Thad went at it, and I barely beat Thad, just by that much. And on the 4th, I got beat by some guys. I'm upset. So next year, maybe I'll back out. But it was a fun, and I appreciate everything the Lions Club does for the 24th. And it's always fun. I love the small town feel when it comes to those small holidays. So. Yeah,
I'm not sure if the older person race or the babies. You know, you start, we lay out ropes in the grass, and then it's those that can walk, crawl, or.
You know that Burke tried to kill the older person race on the 24th, and I had to take it over, and then he ran it. He ran the 60 plus, so it was fun.
We have a remarkable community. Thank you for being a part of it. Yesterday we had a really neat event. It was a project that was years in the making. We cut the ribbon at the east end of what is now called George Washington Boulevard with a new underpass and on and off ramps onto the Southern Parkway. And so that was a big project, and I just want to say thank you to our Public Works Department and for the planning and regional and statewide cooperation on that. That was a big day for us to get a project completed that will be very beneficial. But enough of that. Let's get to what we're all here for, the recognition of the Washington Little League softball state champions. Now, not only is it back-to-back for the Major League, but this year it is the Major League and the Junior League. So I think we're gonna start with the majors first. Coach, raise your hand. Okay, you moved up then with the juniors, didn't you? So this is your ball from last year. Yeah, it's a dynasty on now to the juniors. But the majors, who's our coach here? Okay, coaches, come forward with your players. Tell us a little bit about this team. Tell us a little bit about the run. And if you point to any of them, I'll be happy to put them on the spot to answer some questions. And then coach, if you want to introduce them or have them let's have each of them introduce themselves and the positions that they play, and then we'll talk to the coaches. Go ahead, Thad.
So Mayor, I was the assistant coach. The head coach was Garrett Walpole, and he's got a daughter, Reagan, on the team. I've got a daughter, Sarah, on the team. Maybe I'll just give the tournament report, and then
let's do it.
Garrett can finish up. So we showed up. Our first game was against Northern California. For whatever reason, Utah had been given a bye, so we were playing the team that had won between a Northern California and Southern California start. Northern California won that, and so we got them. Their bats were hot and kind of on a roll, and we were new to a new stadium, and I'd say had a few jitters. It was 0-0 into the fourth inning, and then we had a few things go against us, and we lost that game. And then the girls came back and played Nevada, who was also coming off of a win, or are they coming off a loss? They're coming off a loss. Beat Nevada 3-2 and sent Nevada home. And then their next game was against Hawaii and lost to Hawaii 3-4. Oh. And so we had a lot of close innings in San Bernardino. I'll just share from my perspective, a lot of volunteerism. The amount of people in Southern California and San Bernardino area that come out to prepare the fields in between every game, to cook the food in the cafeteria, to make sure the facilities are all ready. It's all volunteer.
Did you have a chaperone?
We had a chaperone. Just the spirit of volunteerism and of the Little League goal and spirit was so strong down there that I think we had a great time. And the girls played a lot of really competitive innings and had a lot of people talking about the Utah team.
Fantastic. Well done, Coach. Now let's just start right there. If you'll just tell us, speak this way, they can all hear you. If you'll just tell us your name, the position you play, we'll leave it at that for now. I might have some random questions later, but let's start with your name and position or positions.
I'm Sarah, and I play left field. Sarah Segmiller.
Oh, you belong to the city attorney. Okay, I can. You almost look a little more like your mom, Sarah. That's a compliment. Thanks, Sarah. Let's go to the next one.
My name's Presley Woods, and I played first.
First base, great.
I'm Addie Carroll, and I play third.
I'm Reagan Walpole, and I play second.
I'm Maddie Abbott, and I play catcher.
I'm Cameron Dixon, and I'm a pitcher.
I'm Bobby Park, and I play short.
All right. And Coach?
Yeah, and I think we're missing, let's see here, we're missing about 5 or 6 of our girls tonight that they couldn't make it, but the main thing, and Thad kind of summed it up well, gosh, we played the best teams in the West, right? Hawaii, Nevada, and California, and honestly, if you guys had a chance, I know there's a lot of support that some people may have watched on ESPN as these girls went and represented our city and our state very, very well. And to be able to change, it's pretty cool. They're obviously all wearing their Washington jerseys. Some of them might have their Utah jerseys on, but to be able to switch it from the city of Washington to switch it and represent Utah and hear and see the ESPN announcers talk about Zion National Park and Washington and what we're all about. And when people saw us in the hotels and at the stadium and everything, they recognize that we live in a pretty special place. And these girls obviously represent what we're all about here in our community. And they played awesome. they faced some stiff competition, and to correct that, we actually won 12-11 in our Nevada game. So there's a lot of runs that happen, but really tight ball games. It was awesome, and the girls worked hard, and it was pretty fun to be a part of it. And the city obviously supported us, and the businesses and the local people and the community. So it was pretty awesome to make it down there, and a really special experience that I know the girls will remember forever. Pretty cool.
So cool. Well done. Before we give a big round of applause, how many of you are going to keep playing softball? You like it, you love it, you want to keep playing? Yeah, let's do it. Well, we definitely need to come down and congratulate you and get a picture. We'd like to have you girls kind of move to the middle, and we'll kind of fill in behind you, but let's get a picture, and so we can remember this special moment where you're recognized in a public meeting. Do I get it yet? All right, 2 more signatures, and assistant coach will get it to the mayor's office, because I expect you guys back next year as part of the juniors.
Congratulations, girl. Thank you. Thank you.
Not fun. Hey, a big round of applause for the Little League state champs. So now it's my pleasure to, now we're setting the standard for you next year, majors, is to do what the juniors did, and that's back-to-back appearances. Coaches, we know you. Will you come forward, talk a little bit about your run this year, and then once again, I know most of this group has already signed this ball, but once again, I want to hear your names and the positions that you play. Coach, go ahead.
All right, so actually only 2 of them have returned. A lot of them moved on to high school ball. So, yeah, I guess I'll repeat kind of what Thad said. You know, the Little League organization is spectacular. I mean, the way that they care about these kids, and it's not about winning for them, right? I mean, they focus very much on the girls having fun and meeting the other teams from the Western region. And we were in Tucson, Arizona, not Southern Cal. So it was a bit hotter, Thad. Actually, nothing like last year, though. Last year was insane. I think the girls had a lot of fun, and they'll be able to tell you that. They met a lot of the girls from the other states. And, you know, when we weren't playing ball, they were all hanging out together, which was really cool. They were going to the rooms of the Nevada team, right? You guys were hanging out with Nevada. They were hanging out with Arizona. Just, you know, they had a lot of fun. They played hard. We didn't win, but we played 3 games. 2 of them were actually very close. We had like a 6-8 was one of them, and what was the other one? Carly, do you remember? 13 to 14 or something. They were close. First one was not close at all. But we came back and the girls put up a good fight. What else? Anything else? I think they had a lot of fun, and I'm glad we went. We did beat Enterprise, who apparently didn't lose any games all season long.
The Enterprise is always really good.
Yeah, and so we beat them to go to the Western Regionals. I just say these girls are spectacular. They're a great team. They play very well together. They get along great, and they're just a lot of fun to be around. Yeah.
If you had to sum up this group in just one or two words, coach or assistant coach, what would those words be, or what would that word be?
Well, without being, using the word that I also always use, I think they're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And awesome. I heard friends. Yeah, I love it. Well, let's get to know these girls. Come on forward and tell us your name, tell us your position, and let's get to know you just a little bit. This is your time.
I'm Camry Sullivan. I'm the catcher, and my name is on that ball.
Okay, all right, let's see. I see it right here, number 11. At least last year. It looks like last year. Yeah, well, that 8 looks like a 1.
I'm Macy Simpson, and I play center field.
Center field, great.
My name is Preston McDaniel, and I played right field.
Okay.
My name is Olivia Henningsgard, and I played right field too.
My name's Kaya Barnes, and I played first.
Hey, Kaya, while you're here for just a minute, can you just tell the crowd who your favorite neighbor that lives directly across the street from you is?
My favorite neighbor is Cress.
No, you're supposed to say Lynette.
Yeah, it's probably
And
Lynn.
Lynette.
My name is Charlie Field, and I played left. My name is Lindy Merrill, and I played second. My name's Jolie Anderson, and I played center. My name's Tessa Tuckfield, and I play third base.
All right, and you have a sister that plays high school ball with my daughter, Sophia. Okay, you look like your sister. Okay, okay, fantastic. You know what, this is just so awesome. Hey, let's give a big round of applause, and we'll go down and do pictures again.
What about me? Do I just stand in the middle?
Let's have the majors come in and fill in. Let's do one big group photo. Half of you on this side up front of the council, half on that side. Or unless you just want to come in front. Right in front. was the right answer. Good job, everybody. Way to go. Yeah, good job, good job. Way to go, way to go. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Good job, girls. Way to go.
Is that cool?
Oh, yeah, you did actually.
2024. Stuff. Okay, one more round of applause for the state champs. All right, athletes, well done. Back to practice. And any who are here, I'm happy to excuse you now if you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. Okay, at this time, I'll turn to the council for any agenda items for which they would like to declare a conflict or abstain from voting. Is there anything to declare?
Mayor, I'll be stepping off for item 8A.
And abstaining from voting, Councilman?
Both, correct? Yep.
Thank you. Anything else to declare and or abstain? Great. We're going to move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda. This consists of the approval of the minutes from the City Council meeting July 10th, 2024, consideration to approve the board audit report from June 2024, and consideration to approve local consent for the issuance of an off-premise beer license for Albertsons. Council, I'll turn to you for a motion on the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as outlined.
Have a motion by Councilman Belliston,
Second.
second by Councilman Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved unanimously. At this time, it is, Mayor typically doesn't vote, typically doesn't want to vote. But one of my duties that I take very seriously is appointments. And tonight is an appointment that I hope to only make once in my time as mayor. And that is looking to this council to ratify the appointment of a new Justice Court judge. So to this point in Washington City's history, as I understand, we've had 3 judges. Lee Bunnell, who was a fantastic hometown judge. And while I think he did have advanced degrees, they weren't in the legal field. So at some point, the state statutes caught up with him and we had to say goodbye. Although I think he probably has or nears having the record for the number of marriages that he's performed as a Justice Court judge. After Judge Bunnell, for a period of time, we had our very own Thad Segmiller, who's now our city attorney, run the court upstairs and did a fantastic job. From the time that he came on as a city manager, we have been happy to have Judge Jake Graff. Judge Graff runs several other courts, and just in the interest of keeping up with everything, Washington was growing to a pace that he couldn't quite keep up with that and asked to be replaced. So we've gone through a process that's lengthy, that includes a process that the state lays out. We had several applicants for that position. There was a nominating committee. That nominating committee whittled it down to 4 qualified applicants for my consideration. I interviewed each of those applicants, consulted with staff, gave it considerable thought, and have weighed in. And tonight, Council, I'd like to introduce to you the individual that I would like your ratifying vote on to be our newest and next Justice Court judge. At this time, I'd like to invite Aaron Randall to come forward, introduce yourself to the council, introduce your family, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate your trust. I have with me my wife, Amy. I have 3 of my children, I think. Oh, he's right there. So my oldest lives in Germany. Shay is my next oldest. Then my son Ethan's in the back. My daughter Brooke has conflict tonight, and then my youngest is Piper. They all graduated from Desert Hills. I've been lived in Washington County now going on 22 years. This is home. This is the only place my kids really have ever known. And so I was raised in the Midwest, went to high school and had a roundabout childhood, raised in the Midwest, high school in California, served a mission, came back did undergrad work at BYU, did my law degree in California, came back and have been practicing law here in Washington County now for 22 years. In a variety of different areas. I've been in a private law firm for that 22 years in the same office that I was when I started in June of 2002. I feel it really an honor to be nominated and to be selected by Mayor Staley, and I look forward to serving the citizens in the community of Washington City to the best of my ability. And that's all I can pledge is the best what I have, and I believe I will be an asset to the city and to the citizens of Washington City. So I thank you.
Now, Judge Randall, you're already a judge at the Small Claims Court.
Yes.
Can you just tell us a little bit about how you approach your duty on the bench and what this opportunity might mean to you?
Fundamentally, for me, my kind of view of the judiciary has changed over the last 13 years as I've served as a small claims court judge. I initially thought my idea was that it has to be fair for everyone. That's a great ideal, but ultimately, fair is in the eyes of the beholder. And I've learned very quickly that really no matter what I do, somebody's potentially going to go away upset. That's the nature of the system, but I think frankly it's the best system for adjudicating issues is the way that we do it in the US. It simply is a process, and my goal is to simply make sure that they've been heard. Whether I agree with them or not, or whether I rule in their favor, it really is about fundamentally making sure that they are made sure that their voices are heard. And then ultimately, as the judge, I have a job to do, and that's to make a decision. And like I said, most of the times that decision, somebody's going to go away unhappy, and they may disagree with it. And there are procedures to deal with the times when somebody doesn't agree with me, whether it's in the small claims court or in this setting. There will be opportunities for them to appeal to a higher power, so to speak, into a higher court. But fundamentally, my idea is to give them the opportunity to be heard, to be fair, and to treat everyone who comes before me exactly the same, and show no favorites, show no favoritism to anyone, but to give them their day in court and to rule in the best way I can according to the law that's been outlined previously.
Well said. Councilor, is there any comments or questions for Judge Randall before we make this official?
Mayor, I'd just like to say we're super excited to have you, and it's going to be a good relationship moving forward with
I look forward to it. I really do.
Yep.
I'm excited for the opportunity.
Hope I never see you in your courtroom.
I hope I don't see you either. I haven't seen any of you in my courtroom. Hopefully in this.
There's a few out there that I think we need to keep our eye on, but for the most part, I think we're okay. You know, I had the privilege of writing him a letter yesterday indicating that we'd be making this appointment this evening, and I indicated that he checks boxes that were important to me and to this community, and not just for the record. I think these are very indicative of who you are. Check the boxes of character, common sense, and morality. And I have seen nothing but that as we've interacted multiple times, and as I've weighed the other candidates who were all very, in their own right, highly qualified and prepared. But at the end of the day, you have that skill set that's important to be able to manage a modern courtroom in a growing and evolving city. So with you staying right there, it is my privilege, council, to ask for your ratifying vote for Aaron Randall to be the Washington City Justice Court Judge. I'd be happy to entertain a motion, a second, and a vote on that item.
Mayor, I'm prepared to make that motion. Mayor, make a motion to appoint Aaron Randall as Washington City's Justice Court Judge.
You've heard the motion by Councilman Ivey.
I'll second it.
I've got a motion by Councilman Casperson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Congratulations, Judge.
Thank you. I appreciate the support.
You know, that's almost as cool as winning state. I do think in softball. I would like to just invite your family forward to get a picture with the elected body and then excuse you. I know you have a lot of things going on in your life and probably don't want to stay here all night. Let's get a picture. Lester, we're not going to take any pictures after item 6, which is award of bid. We're going to get this moving. I know, yeah, you did wear his best shirt. Item 6A, this is consideration to award the bid for the industrial park wastewater line to M&T Enterprises LLC in the amount of $170,144.45. Assistant Public Works Director Lester Dalton will present to the council.
Hopefully council got a chance to take a look at my briefing document as well as the bid tabulation. We did receive multiple bids on this. I believe we got 7. There was 8 bids that were submitted. One of them was considered non-responsive because it was incomplete on the submittal. That bid did not get read. We didn't even open the bid. So we're really happy with the results on it. M&T Enterprises has been hoping to get a job for Washington City for a long time, and they finally came in as low bid. So just looking for approval from council to move forward with M&T Enterprises.
Lester, was there an engineer's estimate on this project?
Yes, there was. The engineer's estimate came in at $409,900.
I think it's nice that we're seeing some more competitive bids to help keep these prices in check, so you're ready.
I'm ready for motion.
I'll make a motion, we award the bid to M&T Enterprise for $170,144.45.
Second.
You've heard the bid by Councilman Coates, the second by Councilman Belliston. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The bid is awarded unanimously to M&T Enterprises. Good work, Lester. Let's keep those bids coming back like that, okay?
I hope to.
And then let's
Thank
just
you,
get
Mayor.
this
Thank
job
you,
done.
Council.
We'll move on to the next section on the agenda, which is conditional use permits. We have 2 conditional use permits this evening. The public hearings for both of these items occurred at the Planning Commission level. Item 7A is consideration to approve a conditional use permit C-24-10 for an event center to be located on the first floor of the building located at 750 West Merrill Road. The applicant is Rosenberg and Associates. City Planner Eldon Gibb will present.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The applicant is wishing to lease space on the first floor of the existing commercial building for the ability to host wedding venues and other special events. The location of this property is zoned C1. Wedding venues and entertainment facilities in this zoning designation are required to obtain conditional use permit approval. Wedding venues and special events can attract several vehicles at a particular time, which concerns staff. However, if the event venues are held during the evening hours and on the weekend, staff feels the conditional use permit should be granted. On July 17th, 2024, the Planning Commission reviewed this request and had concerns that the block wall on the east boundary line was not installed and the exterior restroom building was not complete as shown on the plan. These concerns were discussed and conditions 5 and 6 were added to the staff report as recommended by the Planning Commission. Since the Planning Commission meeting, staff has spoken with the developer regarding the block wall and restroom facility. Staff understands the reasoning for not installing the block walls and agrees that an alleyway to the north and east property lines could have negative impacts for those using the trail and children playing at the school. Furthermore, City Code does not require bathroom facilities for the food trucks, and the applicant is asking for relief from the City Council to not build the restroom facilities and the block wall as shown on the plan. If the City Council desires to give relief in this regard, condition 5 and 6 would need to be amended as City Council sees fit. On July 17th, 2024, the Planning Commission recommended approval of C-24-10, allowing for an event center to be located on the first floor of the existing building and as shown on the attached exhibits, located at 750 West Merrill Road, and that's based on the findings and conditions as stated in the report. And I'm happy to answer any clarifying questions you may have.
Council, questions for Eldon?
I would just mention, Mayor, that when this came forward, when it was presented, it just kind of made sense. I think it's a good use of the space. I don't see any negatives from this at all. Also, will add a venue that we need quite badly in Washington City and in our area, I think.
Yeah.
I would agree, Councilman Ivy. I think it's a good use. It makes sense not to put the block wall on the east side for sure, because there's already a fence there from the school, and I always hate the chain link against the block. It makes a weird gap, and so it makes sense to me. And the food trucks aren't permanent, but they seem to be popular, and they're taking care of their waste. So I'm fine with those conditions personally, to leave them off. Or allow would you say variance, or?
Remove the conditions?
Correct, yeah, we'd want to remove conditions 5 and 6.
Okay.
Mayor, I'm fine with that too. I went over there today and looked at it, and, there was mention of, that they were missing the surround and the gates for the dumpster. That's been finished. The porta potty is clean. It's in a nice spot. It's down, and I don't have a problem with moving forward with it, and it's a good use for that space, and I'm excited to get a little venue like that in Washington. It's nice. So.
Well said. Councilman Bellison, Councilwoman Casperson, any thoughts?
I'm good with it. I think plenty's been said already.
So the motion might be something that would just approve the conditional use permit period, removing conditions 5 and 6.
Yeah, so
the event space.
If you're ready,
I'll let you wordsmith that when somebody's ready to make a motion. Applicant, I'm happy to let you speak, but if I'm you, you've been doing this long enough, Greg.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve item 7A, conditional use permit for permit C-24-10 for an event center to be located on the first floor of the building located at 750 West Merrill Road, with the conditions for the block wall and the restroom removed, which was 5 and 6, I think.
Okay.
I'll second that.
We have a motion on the table by Councilman Coates, a second by Councilman Henderson. Let's go roll call on this, starting down there. Or Councilman Belliston, thank you. Let's go roll call on this, starting with Councilmember Belliston.
Belliston, aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Ivy. Casperson.
Aye.
The conditional use permit is approved unanimously, and we have unwound a few layers of red tape. Let's move on to 7B. This is consideration to approve a revised conditional use permit, C-24-13, for a hotel located at 1294 Hospitality Way. The applicant is SWH Investment LLC and WH Investment LLC. City Planner Eldon Gibb will present to the council on this revised conditional use permit.
On February 28th, 2024, City Council approved this site for a 5-story hotel, 3-story office building, and a shared parking structure. The applicant has since made changes to the site that include shifting the hotel to the west, removing the office building, and the shared parking structure. The applicant has also added parking to meet the minimum parking requirements for the hotel. The applicant is requesting approval of this revised conditional use permit to build a 5-story hotel located at 1294 East Hospitality Way. This project also received a height waiver from the City Council body up to 65 feet, and that was on October 11th of 2023. The hotel includes 121 rooms with 14 employees during the largest shift. Parking for the hotel requires 140 parking spaces, and this project is proposing 140 parking spaces. The parcel is zoned C2. The area is designated in the general plan as regional commercial. Staff has reviewed the proposed project and finds that it meets the standards as outlined in the general plan and zoning ordinance. Building elevations and finishes are aesthetically pleasing, and appears this development will be a welcomed addition to the city. On August 7th, 2024, the Planning Commission reviewed this request and unanimously recommended approval of C-24-13, allowing for a 5-story hotel to be located at 1294 East Hospitality Way, and that was on to the City Council based on the findings and conditions as stated in the report. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Eldon, for those in attendance, can you just point out the brand of that hotel? It's listed on the building, but maybe a little hard to see.
It's a Hyatt House Hotel.
And that would be adjacent to the Best Western Plus. Council, what questions do you have for the city planner? The hotel looks the same, just some modifications to the site.
Eldon, I just want to confirm, I remember back before it was when they platted the parcel, there was that easement that runs along the south. I think I see it there, but it's not called out on anything I can see. I just want to make sure that easement was for access so they could clean up the slope on the south end. So, do you know if that easement's still there, or?
It hasn't been removed. If it was there, to get that removed, it would have came to this body. If they do plat it, we'll make sure it's on there for the final platting process.
Yeah, so it was just one of those, it was more of an access easement so that they could maintain the slope south of them, which is a pretty steep slope that needs weeding every once in a while, and so we made sure there was an easement there. So.
You made this kind of easy. It hit the parking requirement. You teed it up really nicely for this group. Any other questions or discussion? If not, I'm happy to entertain a motion on this modification to the conditional use permit.
I'll make a motion if there's no other comments.
Go ahead.
Motion to approve the revised conditional use permit C-24-13 for a hotel located at 1294 Hospitality Way.
I have a motion by Councilman Casperson.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Second by Councilman Ivy. Let's go roll call. We'll start with Councilmember Henderson.
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Ivy. Casperson.
Aye.
Belliston. That conditional use permit is approved unanimously. I see the applicant there in the doorway. Any idea on when you might start construction on this? Congratulations. We look forward to it. Thank you for bringing a great project to Washington. Okay, the next section on this agenda is ordinances. We'll move into item 8A. Councilman Belliston's asked to be excused on this item. This is a continuation of consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change Z-24-04, designating an overlay zone for a bar establishment as found in Title III, Chapter 3, located at approximately 1720 East Grapevine Crossing Road North. The applicant is Troy Belliston. City Planner Eldon Gibb will present on this, and before I give over the mic to Mr. Gibb, I will just mention for the record that it's been about a month that this has been tabled because we didn't have a city council meeting on Pioneer Day. So it was tabled previously at the applicant's request because we didn't have enough of a quorum to vote. If you're missing one member and one member is abstaining, it makes it difficult. So this has been tabled. I also want to point out for the record that the public hearing did take place initially at the Planning Commission. At the subsequent city council meeting about a month ago, I did allow for additional public comment to be given, and we heard some, very thoughtful, very appropriate additional public comment. This evening, mainly because it's been 30 days, I'm inclined to allow for a minimal public comment, but I see the group here, and I actually really appreciate the dignity and the way you're conducting yourself. But if there is this council, me as a mayor, we err on the side of public comment. But if you could do us a favor, if one or two people could speak maybe to the thoughts of the whole, and then if somebody else has something else that maybe we haven't heard through those public hearings. We watch the planning commissions, some attend, we read the emails, we've gotten the feedback, so I'm inclined to allow two or three comments to come forward. I think that might be the most fair approach to those in attendance and to the applicant. That was a lot to say, Eldon, to turn it over to you to present once again to the council.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor, Council. The applicant is requesting approval for a bar establishment overlay zone in conjunction with the current Sienna Hills PCD zoning designation as found in Title III, Chapter 3. The total area of the proposed zone is 40 acres and approximately located at 1720 East Grapevine Crossing Road North. The proposed bar establishment overlay zone, if approved, would provide entitlements contingent on site plan approval to sell alcohol product for consumption on the licensed premises and in connection with the license issued by the state of Utah to operate as a bar establishment. Businesses wanting to operate under the bar establishment overlay zone are required to gain site plan approval from the city council prior to opening their doors for business. And that also is found in Title 3, Chapter 3. This application is not site plan approval. This application designates the larger bar establishment overlay zone, which will then allow businesses to submit for the specific site plan approval at a later date. On July 3rd, 2024, the Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommended approval of Z-24-04 of a 3-to-1 vote, and that was allowing for the designated overlay zone for a bar establishment of approximately 40 acres located at 1720 East Grapevine Crossing Road North. And I'm happy to answer any clarifying questions you may have.
Questions for City Planner? Council, this is your vote to make. I'm happy to allow for a little bit of public comment, or the applicant. Applicant, would you rather speak after I allow some public comment? Just looking out in the audience, are there 2 or 3 that would like to make the comment? Okay, I see Emily might be one. Is there another one or 2 that would like to make the comment? Okay, this individual with the Utah Tech shirt on. Are we comfortable with that as a body? I want to make sure that you feel heard. We actually have gone over and above to make sure that this body feels heard, and obviously the lanyards speak loudly as well. Ms. Phillips, if you want to come forward at this time.
Thank you. Excuse me. Like you said, I'm Emily Phillips. I'm a Washington City resident. And if I can, I would love to know, as you have all the citizens who are here and feel as I do and are against this overlay request. So thank you, Mayor and council members, for the chance to speak. And out of respect for your time, I would like to represent many of our shared concerns, the people behind me. I want to remind you of the one question I asked you the last time I was able to have public comment. Why is this overlay needed, and who said that we need it? The requested overlay is incredibly vague. It doesn't benefit Washington City, but it benefits the applicant. Currently, there's no known business asking to come that would necessitate this overlay. I believe that having specifics of what an establishment is wanting to come would be vital to the success of having a high-end bar establishment. And I think it would potentially negate the risks with a standalone bar. We as citizens are all very much looking forward to the Grapevine Crossing project. We've been told it will bring upscale dining, family attractions, shopping, a movie theater, and more. We applaud the developer for being thorough as it's being built out. Let me remind you that any upscale dining or chain restaurant that serves alcohol would not necessitate this overlay. So in closing, why would Washington City want the possibility of being home to the highest number of bars in the entire state? How does that benefit our citizens' health, safety, and welfare? Washington City has always promoted kids and what is best for our future. Having our Washington City softball team here tonight was perfect. That's the example of what we represent and what we want to continue to represent. So we implore you to vote against this overlay tonight. We feel like it is too vague and does not represent what we want for our future in that specific setting. Grapevine Crossing has great potential. Let's do it the right way. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you. Okay. Sir, and if you'd just state your name for the record, I'm sorry, I should know your name.
My name's Dave Moody. And
Dave Moody,
I live
okay.
in Washington City. Moved here about 9 years ago, and I'm the managing member of Silver Reef Brewery Company. We operate about...
Into the mic there, Dave.
Closer? Okay. So I moved here about 9 years ago, live in Washington City. 1733 South Karma. Basically, and I am the managing member of Silver Reef Brewery, and we do have a vineyard that we started in 2006. And it's just up on Turkey Farm Road. We've got it's the largest vineyard in the state of Utah. We currently manufacture about 30,000 bottles of wine a year. We have, like I say, about 50 employees. We pay 401ks. We have insurance benefits. Moved a lot of people here. Some of the people that I've moved here, we just moved some people from Northern California that were in the wine business since 1896, and they manage our vineyard. We currently distribute, I have licenses in 3 states, Utah, Arizona, and Nevada. I'm in currently 500 locations in those 3 states. Smith's Grocery Store, Walmart, Maverick. Most of the restaurants in Washington County, Salt Lake County, Provo, all and up and down I-15. We do have a restaurant in the Las Vegas International Airport. We've got a restaurant in the Seattle Airport. Overall, I handle the compliance for Nevada, Utah, and Arizona. I handle all of our federal licenses with the TTB out of Cincinnati. And then also I do all of the work with the DABS in Salt Lake City, ensuring that all of our that we follow all Utah local federal laws. Now, the reason why I like this site is the fact that the federal government has a regulation that if we have a site within 10 miles of our vineyard, then I don't have to redo my licenses with the federal government. And the ABS falls in line with that as far as manufacturing goes. And the reason why I like this site is, as the crow flies, I'm 6.5 miles. Right now, where my site is, I'm 19.5 miles from where I currently manufacture. Basically,
Dave, are you saying that with the applicant, part of his reason for bringing forward this application is to facilitate your business?
Yes.
Okay.
So what I would like to do is have a facility on this site, and I've actually picked out the facility, the site. I have an unsigned LOI, but to be able to put a facility in, why it's probably going to cost us anywhere from, on the short side, maybe $5 million. On the high side, probably $8 million. On this site, I would look to have a retail store because I want to manufacture some wine there on this site, which would cause for, barrels of wine to be stored in a wine cellar. And at that point, I would also want to sell my wine at this location. Now, have you got any water by any chance, you guys? Sorry. Getting a little dry. So that's one of the main reasons why I like this site, is because I'm within the federal guidelines. if for some reason, and it's hard to go develop a piece of property and say, okay, the state of Utah, I'm gonna go develop this and put up 7 million and hope that we can get a license. The reason why I want a bar, if I can explain, is that some of our wine will sell for, say, $100 a bottle, okay? Let's say it averages $50 a bottle. That's on the low side, but if somebody comes in and purchases a bottle of wine for $50 and wants to drink it there on the site, why with a restaurant, I have to sell 70% of my revenue has to be food. If somebody buys a bottle of wine for $50, that means they would have to spend another $175 in food for me to be compliant with DABS guidelines. That's just not gonna happen. You know, people are gonna come in and they'll buy a bottle of wine and they may have a glass or two there. Say a couple comes in, they can seal it up and take it home. We have a responsibility. All of our people are trained, they go through training. We don't let people drink and drive. You know, that's a responsibility that we have. You'll see in our restaurant that I've had open and at our restaurant now in St. George, I'm not aware of anyone who's had a DUI. And the police I work very closely with. I work with Sheriff Brooksby. I work with the city council in St. George, and you know, it's been a good relationship. That's the reason why I wanna, you know, it just makes it so it tightens up that I wouldn't be able to do business in Washington City if you tie it to a restaurant.
Yeah.
And does that explain?
Thank you,
any
Dave.
other
I think you
questions?
did. I think you did answer Emily's question. This sounded a little bit more like the applicant than the public hearing. But thank you, the applicant.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
really restrict on time. Thank you. I am going to allow two more from the public to give some comment. If you just kind of look to, let's start with the gentleman in the blue, then we'll go maybe one more. Thank you, Mr. Moody. And I think I did meet you one time, actually in an airport. Didn't we cross paths one time? I just trying to search back in the long-term cache there. If you just state your name.
My name is Bob Newsom. I probably live closer to that place than anybody else.
Okay.
But I've lived in Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Arizona, Idaho, Utah, Washington. And every one of those places I've lived, there's been a drunken driver incident fatality. That's from some drunk driver running headlong into some innocent people. Sometimes there are families involved. The only purpose, let's not fool ourselves, the only purpose for a bar is to get drunk. There's no other purpose for a standalone bar. It's to go and get drunk. And we honor these young girls up here. Wouldn't it be ironic to have some drunken driver smash into one of them? We don't need a bar here. We don't want to turn this town into Pottersville. Keep it at Bedford Falls. We all want to live here because it's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise a family.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'll just allow one more comment, and would be great if it's something we haven't heard yet. Yeah, this gentleman here on the front row with the red hat. If you just state your name and your comments, sir.
My name is Bob Mason. I would like to call the council members of the accident that happened a couple of years ago. A father, a grandfather, and his brother, who was a father and a grandfather, was killed by a drunk operator as they were coming down Telegraph Hill just after you get off to the point where you go to the county dump. My grandfather was a distiller. He owned distilleries in Missouri, in Mexico. He operated wineries in the Napa Valley. I am convinced and know without a doubt that if I were to ever take a drink, I would become an alcoholic. And alcoholics die and kill people. And I hope and pray that you gentlemen will not agree to this, but prevent this from coming into our community and facing the problems that can arise from that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. At this time, I'd like to invite the applicant to come forward and respond to any of the public comment and answer any questions from the body. Mr. Belston.
Well, I think first things first, I don't like the process that was created, right? The ordinance that was created this process. And quite frankly, I think it would have been a lot better if we just left it up to an application to come forward within the city. But with the city, what the council did unanimously, created an overlay zone to say that a landowner, me, I have no desire to operate a bar, but I'm the guy that has to come in and go through this overlay so that somebody can come in and potentially put an application in for their restaurant. Now, I've been talking to Dave about doing a restaurant, facility up here for years, right? And Dave's expressed a desire to come and do a wine and charcuterie place. I mentioned it in the public hearing. His numbers are out of whack. It doesn't work. Under DABC rules, it has to come under that bar rule. I think I probably should have stated first, though, that just for the public's concern, I don't think anybody on this council has had any pressure from me whatsoever regarding a vote. This is all independent. You guys vote the way you need to vote. But back to the fact that we have this overlay zone, again, these are my neighbors, right? Like, I don't like being put in this position with my neighbors. When I think Dave Moody's a responsible operator, we would love to have him come up there. You got an email earlier today of the different bar licenses in St. George. I don't like a one and only. I think a one and only bar would screw up our site. But a Wood Ash Rye wouldn't, and a Wood Ash Rye carries a bar license in St. George. They're a high-end, facility that has food and whatever else, but they chose to go bar route because of the food calculation within the state. A lot of the folks here probably don't realize that, this bar overlay, it wouldn't keep a Hooters from coming in because a Hooters is a restaurant, right? I don't want a Hooters either. But, there are certain facilities that do fall within those DABC rules that meet the law. And so this is the process that I have to go through. So.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, questions for the applicant.
Yeah, Mr. Belliston, I know you don't like the overlay zone, but would you like us just to go back to what we had before, is the question? Because this rule was intact, and I know you weren't on the council at the time, and you weren't a part of that process. I was. I thought it was a process that was a good process to work with what we have. If we went back to the rule before, we wouldn't even be here tonight. Like, we have a bar in the city, and this is a process that we felt was good. I mean, I felt it was a good process to show, hey, it's an overlay zone, we expect a bar. So I guess, I'll admit.
Let me rephrase my statement, right? Maybe if I had input then, I wouldn't be as critical of it, right? But it is what it is. This is the process now. And so I've come in to comply with the process that's been created. I was charged by the city $2,522 to stand here today to say, hey, we'd like to have somebody be able to come and submit an application. And as it is, so the residents here know, all this does is allow somebody to come in and submit an application. This is the firewall between, a restaurant being able to even submit an application within the city.
Further questions, comments for the applicant?
Yeah, so I got a question on the future park. I see the green dot there. I just forgot about it till I saw it, but I know back in the day when they did the PCD amendment, they moved, is it 2.5 acres or 3?
That future park is a civil requirement.
Yeah, 2.5 acres right there.
2.5 acres. It was 4 acres. An acre and a half stayed down at the Canyons Park. and the other 2.5 came up here.
So one thing that I'm worried about is the proximity. I mean, what's that law? I guess, I don't know right off the law. of the
That park is not in, it's, I don't know, it's 600 feet or something from a public space.
From the
but
public space.
Nonetheless, any application that comes in at a later date, if that park is in, then they're gonna have to meet the distance requirements.
But the park has to go in no matter what.
It's undefined where it would go. And quite frankly, if it went right where that little circle shows, then whatever state radius would go around that park, and then anything that came in couldn't be within the distance requirements.
Yeah, and I know it's undefined. I just, and that's the thing, is we don't know, it's gonna be in that general area. It could be on the other side of the road. I don't know. It could be wherever it makes sense as you get planning out.
It's not within my lease option right now that has been submitted for consideration. I know this graphic was given to you guys, but this is not what I submitted. I submitted
Yes.
the meets and bounds of my lease option.
And this is the PCD plan for
Correct.
Sienna Hills. So, okay, just wanted to see. So that is at the 600 feet.
It's either 300 or 600. There's different rules on it.
Yeah.
And a church falls with that because Sakura has a liquor license. The reason why their doorway is on the northeast corner is because in my dad's project next door, there's a church that operates. And so they put it on the opposite side of the building. So that there's rules on its access, its distance to doorway.
Okay.
Do you remember the distance, Drew? Churches and parks?
I think it is a 600. Is it 3?
It might be 3.
So, Mr. Belson, can you explain the manufacturing? That caught me off guard tonight. What kind of manufacturing?
He actually manufactures up there. What he's wanted to do is potentially do a wine cellar underneath the restaurant to where they can let the wines age in barrels. They still wine it. They still make it. They still do everything up at their facility north of town. But to have a wine cellar underneath where they can let the barrels age, or if they come and bring a fresh barrel up and pull wine out of that, that's what's been discussed.
Okay. Councilman Henderson.
Say, Mayor, my understanding is that if we hadn't have passed this overlay zone, that we'd be waiting until we had 40,000 residents to have this conversation. Is that correct?
Well, correct and not correct. You changed the ordinance and you could have expanded the licenses at that point and just said, hey, we're gonna take it from 1 per 20,000 to 2 per 20,000, or whatever. You could have changed that number and not created the overlay zone, or not even changed it. I mean, if the whole point of this was to say we don't want to have bars or bar establishments in our city, don't change the ordinance, right? Because then you got to wait till you hit 40,000. But we're pretty close to that anyway.
So as the code stands today, there's 2 mechanisms by which someone could apply for a bar license. The first is under what we call it's not the quota, it's the population mechanism, which city code currently states that for every 20,000 count of residents, the city law will allow 1 bar license establishment. So for some time now, we've allowed 1 bar license establishment because we have been somewhere between 0 residents and 39,000 residents. And so we've had a bar for some time because we did have 20,000 and beyond. Our population is at, or maybe beyond, depending on who's counting, and we may be at 40,000 today, right? Depending on which count mechanism the city council chooses to adopt, which pursuant to that city code would mean that 1 more bar license establishment would be able to come into existence just through the state mechanism without any other approval from city code. A couple years ago, the city council adopted a second mechanism for bar establishments, and I'm talking about standalone bar establishments. That mechanism is the designated overlay zone, which is what is being discussed here tonight. That mechanism in city law states that if a designated overlay zone is established, within that overlay zone, up to an additional 3 more standalone bar licenses may be applied for within that zone. And so this new mechanism, when it was passed a couple years, the purpose of it was to state that more might be allowed, but first, the city council wanted to be able to consider and decide whether the proposed zone was appropriate from the city council's perspective of what's in the best interests of Washington City and its residents. And so tonight is the up to 3 in a designated overlay zone prong of the city code. The traditional prong is nearing 40,000 right now, and Mr. Belliston is correct. These restrictions within city code could be changed by any city council. Most smaller cities in our state have similar type of quotas where they tie the business or the bar licenses to population. Bigger cities like St. George, Salt Lake City, they've intentionally reduced their quotas so that they can promote more bar licenses within their economic districts. One thing that hasn't been stated, but there's a lot of other bar licenses that aren't standalone bar licenses. License categories like bar in hotel, bar in convention center, bar in a commercial establishment. Our code has provisions for all of those to still come in, notwithstanding an overlay zone as well. And so the overlay zone was really intended to increase the amount of standalone bar establishments above and beyond the quota ordinance that had been there.
That in the planning commission, you also talked about some of the Utah laws that govern this. Touch on that, just in the case some of those people who are here tonight didn't hear what you talked about in the planning commission.
I don't know if I remember perfectly what I talked about the planning commission, but I will try to do my best and answer what I think you're asking. So Washington City and the state of Utah regulate alcohol in parallel. The state of Utah the legislature of the state of Utah has granted the state a monopoly within the boundaries of the state of Utah for the import and wholesaling of all alcohol products, wines, liquors, and all of that. The legislature of the state of Utah has also established their own quota system and their own license definitions for all of the various types of sale points for the sale of alcohol. And so an applicant would have to get a license approved from the state of Utah, if there was one. And there's many years when the state of Utah quotas are exhausted. There just aren't any licenses available until the legislature next decides to allow more. So they would first have to get a state license. And then the way that Washington City administers their code is they say, if you can't get a state license, don't come and ask us for one. If they'll bring a state license to Washington City, the city staff then look at city code to determine whether they would qualify for what we call local consent or a local license. So in essence, an applicant would need to have a license from both the state of Utah and the city of Washington for the approved use. Is that what you're referring to, council member? Studies have been done, and most of the state's licenses issued end up in congested urban districts that have multiples and many bars. Some folks from the smaller areas have bemoaned that bar licenses that are issued by the legislature based on maybe rural populations are ending up in urban areas. But most of the rural areas are pretty happy that they didn't get that bar. They were happy to let that bar go to the urban area. And so there's a bit of an imbalance within the state of Utah because we have a limited license system and certain cities want to promote bars and other cities want to limit or regulate them. We kind of have this accumulation of bars in certain areas, reality within our state.
Thank you, Thad. Mr. Belliston, is there anything else you wanted to add? I didn't want to cut your time as the applicant.
Oh, it's fine. I just sat down because I didn't want to. Well, that you can get a little wordy at times. But no, I mean, I'm just happy to answer any questions. I mean, it's again, it's in the city, we just have the secondary layer. So I'm just trying to comply with that so that if or when, we have a restaurant or we have an establishment want to come in and make an application, they can go through their process, right? I don't want to have to come and do it at that point in time.
Mr. Belson, can I say one more thing?
Sure.
When the overlay zone code was discussed and approved by the council, I was here as the attorney. I will state that Mr. Belliston wasn't on the city council, but the planning commission and the city council did look at this, I won't say exact area, but this general area as one of the areas that they thought the code they were considering might apply someday.
Exit 13 was used as the example for the overlay.
Any additional questions? Go ahead.
I don't think I have too many questions for the applicant. I think one of the things, I guess I do, I agree when we looked at this overlay zone, when we made the ordinance, and I've always thought of it as we would get an idea of what we're getting, and then you make the overlay zone and move forward with it. That's how I envision the process. I'm not saying it's the only way to run the process, but that's how I envisioned it is, hey, we have this small little area and we're gonna have this restaurant and this restaurant, but they don't meet the state local code. And
well, it's kind of a chicken or the egg, right? I mean, as far as like Mr. Moody's concerned, he said, I don't even know if I can put an establishment up there. So can we, until we know that he can even pursue an application, he's not gonna put time, money, and resources towards an application if there's no way for him to even submit. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and people always have to take risk. I understand that. And I'll be full disclosure, I'm for some kind of a restaurant / bar up in that area. It's a commercial district. I have no problem with that. That's why we made, and this is the direct area. And I think my biggest concern I have is it's just everything. We don't have, it's not like, hey, it's 10A or it's 10B. I need all these areas right here, right now. And
well, can I answer that one?
Yeah, go ahead. So
to submit, I have to have engineering for what I want to submit. I have to have a meets and bounds. I've got to pay a $2,500 application fee. Actually it'd be a few dollars less because I don't have to pay the acreage, but it's over $2,000 each time. If I do 1 square inch or if I do 40 acres, I already had all the meets and bounds description of the area. And again, it's an overlay. We're not doing a site specific. If the ordinance was written as site specific, we would have done that different, right? But it came in as a zone overlay, just like, vacation rental overlay in Sienna Hills.
But those were all site specific.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, they were. It was
that was an overlay zone that was an overlay zone for 6, 7, and 8, and 3.
But it was site specific to those.
Well, what you're essentially asking for is lot specific.
I'm not asking for lots specific.
Okay.
I don't think I am. I'm not. It's not my intent. But
well, I really don't want to do this process more than once. Right?
I don't either.
Understand. It's not comfortable for my neighbors. And it's not comfortable for me. I mean, I like it when they wave at me with all 5 fingers. So. That was a joke.
No,
So. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, Mr. Belliston. Council, turn to you now for comments amongst the body.
Mayor, there's one case about being here in southern Utah. We're having a big brother nearby is a benefit. Sometimes we can learn from what they've gone before us. And I was interested in some articles that I read that were in the newspaper regarding our big neighbor to the west and how they started what you'd call a bar district, essentially, and they allowed for 4 bars to be brought in. And then just a few months later, from November 2020 to January 21, they, in council meeting, rescinded 2 of those. And even though those are in effect, if they're ever turned back in, then they won't be reissued. So in that case, I think it's really good that we have something, a barometer, to try to see how this would affect our city. Whereas what's been mentioned tonight, I don't want to be redundant, but what's been said is it's really important to me when they talk about the softball players that were here. You know, and that's always been in Washington my whole life. Washington's been about the youth and about doing everything we can to better their chances and to help them to have a successful life. And I'm not saying that bars would directly impact that, but you know, I looked up some statistics, and this is really beside the point, other than that it's appalling to me, the sharp increase in DUIs in the last several years. Almost all fatalities, 60% of them involve either drunk or drug impaired drivers. And, you know, that to me, you know, there's just some things about this application that concerns me. It concerns me that you could have up to 4 bars in one geographical area, and I've never been in a bar, so I'm going to admit that right up front. But I would imagine that when you drink so much that sometimes the bartender would say, okay, you've had enough. And with other bars there, that would create a situation where there might be some problems with that. But essentially, Mayor, what I'm trying to get at is that I have a lot of concern about this application. I think that I don't think it leans or lends itself to what Washington City is or what we want to become. I do think that people have a right to drink, and I think that we have provided great opportunities for those. And in this case, the state, to me, does a great job in that they regulate a bar license for every 20,000. And as was mentioned, if you open up a motel or a restaurant, they have a bar license, so you can go there and drink. And the intent is, again, like what was mentioned, is that you're going there to have dinner and you have a drink with your dinner. I think that's where we need to be. But if the intent is to go to a bar to get drunk, then that adds up. And I don't know that that is or not, it was mentioned. But that to me gives me a lot of concern. And the last thing that I'm going to mention, Mayor, I'm not going to take a lot of time on this tonight, but when you consider the health, safety, and welfare that was mentioned, I don't think anyone, from even back to the days of Prohibition in the early 20s, that people wouldn't say that alcohol brings inherent dangers and risks to families and their lives. So to me, Mayor, I don't want this to be rude or insensitive, but for me personally, I don't know what my legacy is going to be as a city council member, but it's not going to be to approve a bar district in Washington City.
Thank you, Councilman. Further discussion, further comment amongst the body? Councilman Henderson?
Yeah, I've got a few. So Mayor, I'm not a drinker, but I think I'm going to start after this meeting tonight. No, I'm just teasing. So I'm just going to share a few thoughts that I've got rolling around in my head. The first one is a lot of times when I hear the word bar, or when we hear the word bar, in our minds we think of, you know, Beck Street up in Salt Lake or some parts of State Street. You're thinking of Harley Davidsons backed in, you know, against the curb. And I don't think any of us want that type of a bar. That's the type of bar we would call a standalone bar. I don't think any of us have an intent to have something like this here. Okay, that's one of my thoughts. Another thought is this. And thank you for your public comments during the public hearing. Appreciate that, and thank you for your emails. I've enjoyed having email conversations with several of you, personal conversations. But one of the problems I have with the system that's in place right now, you can be considered a restaurant if 30% of your sales is alcohol, right? You guys realize that. So the ratio is 70-30, and if that, I get out of line, let me know.
So isn't that based on dollars, right?
On dollars, yeah. If 30% of your sales are alcohol, you're considered a restaurant. If 31% of your sales is alcohol, you're considered a bar. And so I have a little bit of a problem with that. I've been to many establishments over the years that would be considered a bar. I'm not a drinker. Little establishments that sell craft beers and burgers, or little pub and grubs. I bet most of us in here have been to little establishments like that that would not be considered a restaurant here in Utah. They'd be considered a bar, right? I've heard in the public hearing, 2 or 3 of you say, we would welcome one of these big, restaurants that have a bar in them. Well, I've been in some of those restaurants, and we could probably name half a dozen of them here. We'd all love to get one of them up there, but some of those have gigantic bars with a lot of people drinking. And some of those bars are huge, but they have so many tables. When you have 100 tables and you're selling a lot of food, even though you sell a lot of alcohol, you can meet that 70-30 ratio. So one of those restaurants might sell a lot of alcohol, but a little pub and grub may sell just a fraction of that amount of alcohol in a night, but it would be considered a bar, right? You guys following where I'm going? So what I'd like to propose, I would like to see some of these little restaurants that don't quite meet the 70-30 thing have a chance to come and locate here. So what I think I'm going to propose is this. I'm going to propose that we pass the alcohol overlay zone, or the bar overlay zone, but that we make a rule that it's 50-50, that we can't have any establishment that sells more than 50% alcohol. There was actually one person at the public hearing with the Planning Commission that actually said that. One of you guys said that we're okay with 50-50. Okay, and when I heard that, I'm like, that's actually probably a pretty good idea, because I knew that the ratio was 70-30, but I was thinking, if we could make it 50-50, I would be okay with that. So I'm going to propose that we do that, and I've talked with our city attorney. He said that we can do that. We could make arrangements with that. But what that would do, the reason we passed this overlay zone in the first place was to give the city council a little bit of flexibility and to give developers a little bit of flexibility. Nobody wants a biker bar, but we would like to entertain the opportunity to have some of these other places come to town that sell burgers. I've been to many places that sell burgers and draft beer, even though I'm not a drinker. And if a table orders, 3 or 4 draft beers and some burgers, well, their beer tab is just as much money as their burgers. So that's where I come up with the 50-50 thing. So for me, I don't want a bar overlay zone that allows a biker bar in that sells 100% alcohol, but I am willing to look at some establishments that don't quite meet the 70-30. So, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Further discussion, further comments?
Yeah, I have a question for our attorney, Thad. On that 50-50, does that correlate with any state laws, or would that be an independent law? How would we regulate that if we did that?
Well, I am a member of the Nevada Bar Association and the Utah Bar Association.
Which kind of bar are we talking about?
I just have to confess that right up front. I belong to two.
If it's a like bar, if it
and I could probably sing it. That would be a standard that's unique to Washington City. That 50-50 is not in state code. Because of the nature of our code and it being an overlay zone, I don't have concern if the council wants to create a unique percentage for this, code created opportunity of an overlay zone. But yeah, it would be its own definition. There's none such in Utah law.
State level, Thad, state has investigators and auditors that monitor folks and making sure that the food and the alcohol sold equivalently.
They do.
So we would implement this possible ordinance here. How do we regulate that, or how do we make sure that it's staying within those bounds? How do we have security or understanding that that's the way it would actually be?
Really good question. The state, by guaranteeing themselves the alcohol monopoly, guaranteeing themselves by statute certain statutory profit percentages on the alcohol they sell, have a lot of money to hire staff to administer the auditing and the following up on their licenses. And it's one of the state agencies that I would describe as very active. They've got a lot of money, they've got a lot of staff. Washington City, by virtue of not being the state of Utah, we don't have anything much left as far as revenue from alcohol because the state takes it all. And so we would either need to find someone within our current organization chart that has the ability to do that. We could perhaps ask the state to share with us their audit findings, and that might be able to save us a little bit of efficiency. But yeah, we don't have anybody with that job description right now.
Dad, correct me.
The applicant, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I just, when we're talking about this, I mean, you know, it would seem to me that if you were gonna put a ratio, you'd have to change the ordinance that's already there, but any application that comes in, they're gonna have to apply to the city for the license, and then there's an annual renewal that city council has to approve, right? So, I mean,
Correct.
that's how you regulate it and say, you know, they come and apply to the city, and it's really up to the council to say, great, we want to make sure that you're doing that much in, you know, for whatever the ratio is, and then if they don't, then you just don't renew their license.
Yeah, that's accurate. So both levels, the state level and the city level, require an annual renewal of bar licenses. One of the mechanisms the state uses is they require that the restaurant bar locations submit to the state essentially financials that designate, you know, alcohol sold, profits, food sold, profits. Washington City could mirror that and or just ask the state to allow us to piggyback on what they're already requesting.
Okay. Councilman Ivy, your light's on? Did you have comment?
So
You didn't have a comment.
I have a question
Councilman Coates.
on the application process. When it came to the application, I'm surprised at the cost of that. Where did we come up with that dollar amount? Is it based on acreage, or is it just a number we threw out when we made the ordinance? I'm just curious.
The 2005 52, am I remembering that right?
That's, the acreage is above that if they're going, and I can't remember. Council, you know, better enough.
It's considered a zone change, so it's the same as if I'm doing a subdivision. I mean, they charge me based on a zone change. because
overlay
that's-
zone.
That's what it is, right? So this is 40-acre
That, yeah.
subdivision.
The zone change
application
is
charge.
450, I think, the base price, and then it's so much per acre. That's why it came to that. If his acreage wasn't as big, it wouldn't.
It's $450 plus the
Plus the
acreage.
noticing, plus the
yeah,
postage,
okay.
plus
I
the
just
title.
the 2,000 threw me off because
That wasn't the
paid 2,000.
base fee. Yeah.
2,522.
The size of it.
For the notices and
450 of it was the standard fee. Okay, I just want to clarify.
Yeah,
on
but I
that.
think the actual acreage was, it wasn't, the acreage wasn't the large portion of the number, but I could go pull it and send you a copy if you want.
Fine, when you said it was 2,000, I was like, I've never seen an application fee start at 2,000. So that's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
And I could have been wrong because we haven't done one of these, so.
So Mayor, if my light is on again.
All right.
This time I'm ready to speak. So considering that the state already has a pretty complex program in place where they already have this. And we really haven't explored whether or not there are some nice restaurants that have bars that would like to come in under our current statute guideline ordinances with the state. Doesn't it seem like it would make sense that we allow that to play itself out and see? Because I know that I think of every time someone talks about a good restaurant with a bar, I think of Olive Garden. That's my favorite. And you see, you know, I've seen drink, and I'm never offended by the drinking that goes on there. I never see that, because I also think the food helps to absorb some of the alcohol or whatever that scientific effect is. But I would just suggest that maybe we, you know, that there might be people out there that would come in under the current laws that right now that are in place and not have to change anything if we could, you know.
But under our current law, we couldn't.
It would be if a restaurant came in and they sold so much food as compared to alcohol, then they could.
Is that 70-30? You're saying 70-30. That was restaurant, but I see what you're saying now. So I thought you meant our current ordinance that only allows one because we're not to the 40,000 yet.
Standalone, yeah.
A standalone. And that one bar that we have, it's across the street from my office. There's there's random cars there. It's not super busy. I know that. Might be on Saturdays when I'm not there, but
Don't let him fool you. He works Saturdays too.
I'm not at the bar.
I know you're not at the bar, but you're at your office. I know how much you work.
No, so I appreciate where you're going with that, Brett. I do. I don't know how that hinders the applicant. So maybe I can ask the applicant, does 50-50 work for you? Or is that something, I'm just asking, because I don't know your demographic if that works.
The reason why I'm applying for this now is because I don't have an applicant to answer that question, right? That's not a question for me. That's a question for Dave Moody or if somebody else that's the craft brew guy. I don't know what their numbers are.
Yeah.
I'm not in that
okay.
business, right? And that's kind of why I pushed back to the thought of it. Like, I don't know that the city really needs to be in the regulation business of looking at a business's books. They already have enough oversight from, the state. So you have an application process for an entity later on, and then you have an annual renewal. I mean, that's where that question gets answered and addressed.
So this question's for that. On an annual renew, say there is a problem with a facility. Is that something we can deny at any time just because we've had problems? I mean, it seems like there's a liability if you just say, well, we've had too many issues with you, we're going to shut you down, or what liability does that put on the city?
Correct. Yes. The local consent is meaningful and it's based in law. And so the local legislative body can refuse to consent if they have a finding of something that they think violates the law relating to bar establishment. Those of you that have been here a few years will remember one of the years not too long ago, you were asked to issue a probationary approval on our bar license. And you'll recall that you received some reports and feedback as to how that went. So in our own city, we had a probationary license for 1 year there while we tried to find out whether that bar was capable muster of state law. There's a couple of bar establishments in St. George that continue to operate even though their licenses have essentially not been renewed by the city. Essentially, they operate under an argument of grandfathering. They're not allowed to transfer anything they can transfer or sale. There's nothing they can expand. They're just continuing within the footprint that they had at the time that they lost their license. And so I'm only sharing that as an example that I think the cities in Southern Utah that do have at some bar establishments have been proactive in watching them and making sure they're complying with the law.
That in all fairness, I don't think they've lost their licenses. The city just changed the number of licenses they said they were going to allow. And they said that whenever the first two establishments cease, then they won't grant a replacement to another entity, right?
Yeah,
And so they haven't actually lost their licenses, but again, I understand St. George is already relooking at changing that. I mean, they reduced that number a couple of years ago because they did have Wood Ash Rye, Hive 435 come in, Station 2 come in, and Spiritual all come in right there together. And they reduced the number because they got a little freaked out saying, oh crap, what's going on here? Are we going to have a problem? But you ask any of the council members over there and the mayor, and I've talked to several of them, do you have a problem down here in this area? And they're like, no, we're going to go back and change it again because Wood Ash Rye has been great. Hive 435 has been great. You go downtown in that area, I mean, it wasn't very busy. Go down in town on a Friday or Saturday night, it's busy down there. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of activity, right? And quite frankly, Spiritual, the front door to Spiritual is a few feet away from the front door to an ice cream shop, right? It's not, I mean, I don't go spend time in Spiritual, or ice cream shops personally, but they're right there. They coexist.
I'm gonna get you in an ice cream shop here.
I'm down
Give
40
me
pounds.
a few weeks. I'm gonna get you in an ice cream shop. All right, let's keep this going. Give us your final thoughts.
I'm done. I just keep having to get up. I figure I stand here.
All right, council, final thoughts before I call for a vote on this item.
So my final thoughts are one. I don't know how the 50-50 rule works. I'd like to hear what everyone else thinks about that. I don't think any of us want a district. When we talked about this, we allowed up to 3, and the intention was, hey, maybe there's one here, there's one somewhere else, and one somewhere else. Like have 3 different areas that affect it. I don't think the intention would ever, I think the code allows it, but can we condition it to just be one bar establishment?
You're feeling that this is a broad stroke rather than
Well, just because of the size of it.
granular.
I'm not a
I hear
fan of the size. I've already said that. And so I'm sitting here, if we limit it to one for now, and it's just one's allowed. When we see one, then we'll work on that one. If there's no reason to approve more than one until one's approved, is how I look at it. Oh, and then I also am, I mean, I haven't brought this up, but I think about this, a lot of the residents are concerned because they live in 1 and 3 and I don't know everywhere, but if we held it to just the north side of Grapevine Crossing Road, would that affect the applicant? You don't want that.
All right, this is your final comment.
So the reason
here.
why I bring it up is because they are higher and they look over those houses. And if they built an establishment on the edge that potentially could have a balcony or something going off, I'm not comfortable moving forward with this site right now without a site specific explaining how things are sitting.
Look, again, I submitted for the properties under the option that I have because I don't know what or where people want to go in, right? And you have the number of 3 and you have the application process. If you don't want to approve a second one up there, don't approve a second one. But if another property owner comes and brings one in, great. And they want to pursue an overlay, more power to them. You still have an application process, you still have a cap. In the case of Mr. Moody, we've discussed putting an upscale restaurant on the corner there at 10D, right? So if you say, we'd only do it anything north of Grapevine Crossing, well then, that knocks him out of considering or wanting to potentially look up there, maybe. I don't know. That's
Councilman Henderson.
So, even if we were to pass an overlay zone tonight with a 50-50 stipulation on it, each applicant still has to come in and get approval. I mean, we're not approved, and we still have a hard cap at 3 for the city. Is that correct, Jeremy?
You have a hard cap of 3 within a designated overlay zone.
So what the 50-50 thing does is if an applicant comes in and says, hey, I want a standalone bar, then Drew can say, well, that's not going to work because our rule is 50-50. And so they'll have to move on to a different city. But if we get a pub and grub that comes in and says, hey, we sell burgers and tacos and beer and, but our sales are, 40% beer and 60% burgers, then we're like, okay, yeah, we'll look at you because that falls within what the council is wanting to do. So,
but
this gives us some flexibility.
Councilman
I
Henderson.
don't like the 70-30 thing. I want to have a little bit of flexibility. I want a developer, whether it's Mr. Belliston or anybody else, to be able to have the freedom to go out and say, okay, the city's said we can do this, and the 70-30 thing, it limits. There's tons of great restaurants out there that don't meet the 70-30 that are really good establishments where,
I think my concern, Councilman, is 50-50 the right number? If we were to go down, I mean, that's just thrown out in the dark. Like, what do those restaurants need? I don't know. It's hard for me to say, to give a limit like that when I don't know. Because I think I'm hearing that we're looking for a restaurant / bar, but that it potentially could go over what the 70-30 rule is. I agree. I've never liked that rule. I think it should be just a nice establishment, but we definitely don't want to be a 20% restaurant, 80%.
Councilman
the
Henderson.
reason
In Colts. Oh, sorry.
is I'm not comfortable with a place that sells more alcohol than they sell food. But I am okay with the 50-50. That gives us some
Do
flexibility.
you have more questions for the applicant?
I'm done. Thanks,
Okay,
Mayor.
thank you. Councilman Casperson.
I just wanted to say, when we were discussing this bar establishment overlay zone, something that I remember that was proposed was that we would have a restaurant so we could see what kind of restaurant was going to be coming. So it would be like they would have the opportunity to propose. So it sounded, for me, when we were talking about this, it was like we would know what kind of restaurant, we're going to give the opportunity to have this overlay zone. And I have similar concerns as Councilman Ivy, and so I'd like to make a motion to deny an ordinance for a zone change Z-24-4 designating an overlay zone for a bar establishment as found in Title III, Chapter 3, located at approximately 1720 East Grapevine Crossing Road North.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Casperson, second by Councilman Ivy. Let's go roll call. We'll start with.
Mayor, if I may, don't mean to interrupt, but whenever we recommend a denial, we should always give a.
That's right.
A directive of why we're recommending.
Just for the reasons that have been stated.
Okay. We good with that? Reason stated on the record.
If that's the record she wants to make, that's the record she makes, yeah.
We'll go roll call.
Mayor, may I have a moment?
Yeah, I don't know what the rules are on this one. Yeah, point of order, discussion on it?
You can have discussion on the motion.
Discussion on the motion?
Specific to the motion?
I don't know.
Are you asking me to comment on
The
reason?
the process, specifically on the process.
So our code and state law and case law and denials are considered in court, essentially when they get appealed. The thing that the court will analyze is whether the reasons for denial are the correct reason in the jurisprudence of zoning. And so the council member doesn't have to make any explanation for the denial, but when there aren't explanations for denial, almost always the denial is overturned. And so as a matter of practice, we ask for those because explanations about the motion and really the reasons why the denial is being moved tends to help them have a better day in court if they do get appealed.
Okay. So I'll give you an opportunity to explain your motion.
So my reasoning is it's just not clear what's going to be happening here. I would like to have it be more clear. It's overlay zone what is going to be.
So I would request, because this is the first time we've ever seen this type of application. I don't think it's right that we should charge the applicant that kind of money on something that might be flawed in our ordinance. Because it doesn't specifically say it's site specific. I agree with you. When we made the ordinance, I thought the intent was to show it, but there's some clear, I would like to refund their money on that application if we're gonna deny this for that reason.
So what I'm hearing is that the primary reason for the denial is that it's not site specific. It sounds like council has, at least other council member has a similar concern. It sounds like the recommendation would be also to refund the application fee based on the process not being clear.
And we better relook at our liquor ordinance.
Would you like to add that to your motion?
Is that something that needs motion to get to a refund?
I would not add a refund of an administrative fee to a zoning decision.
We could discuss that later.
I think the council can choose to do that in a separate action, but I wouldn't add that to a zoning.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Did you have anything else you want to discuss on it, Councilman Coates?
No.
Okay, we're gonna go roll call. Council Member Coates.
Nay.
Council Member Ivy.
Aye.
Council Member Casperson.
Aye.
Council Member Henderson.
Nay.
I told you I did not ever want to have to break a vote. I have a number of reasons why. I think the one that I will state though is that it would be my preference that this council, the legislative body that is typically the voting body, would be able to come to a majority consensus without my involvement. So with all due respect to all of my peers on the council and the applicant, I guess because the motion is to deny, my vote is yes to deny the application. Okay, so for the record, the zone change request Z-24-04 is denied with a vote of 3-2. And if you would like to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I'm happy to excuse anyone who's not wanting to stay for the rest of the meeting. Hey, we're going to take 5 for a little restroom break as well. I or they? back. And then we got a few more items of business. We're going to move on to item 8B. This is consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change request Z-24-01 from AP R16 and open space to PUDC located at Washington Parkway and 200 East. The applicant is Greg Whitehead. And the applicant is Greg Whitehead. City Planner Eldon Gibb will present on this item.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The requested change is from the current zoning of AP, open space R16 to a proposed PUDC. The general plan land use designation was approved several months back to the PUDC category. The surrounding zoning is PCD to the north, which is the Solente development, open space, and R16 to the east, R16 to the south, and PUDR to the west. The PUDC request is for the purpose of developing the acreage into a storage for a couple uses here. The first one is storage facility. The second is commercial office buildings and one quick serve drive-through. Broken down, the project includes 4 commercial office buildings. Each one of those office buildings is 15,000 square feet in size for a total of 60,000 square feet. One quick serve drive-through, which is 1,200 square feet. 34 man caves. The man caves are approximately 1,328 square feet in size for a total of 45,150 total square feet. And then 283 individual storage units totaling 59,600 square feet. The proposed project includes 253 parking spaces, which meets the minimum required parking stall count. The exterior finishes are attractive and well designed, along with attractive landscaping being proposed as shown in the exhibits. The new development will be required to meet the standards as outlined in the city ordinances and adopted building and fire codes. Staff feels that if these can be met, the request should be granted for the proposed new commercial development at this location. On August 7th, 2024, the Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommended approval of Z-24-01. That was a vote of 3-1 for the zone change request from AP, open space, and R16 to the proposed PUDC and open space zoning designations based on the following findings and subject to the conditions below. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Eldon, I have a quick question for you. Drew, can you go back to the site plan? Along that west boundary, is that one long strip of the 283, I thought I heard, individual storage units along that west border there? Is that a separate building? I see the building on the south, but on that west, on the west side there, yeah, along there. That's a separate storage unit building.
Correct. Storage units to the south and that west line, man caves directly in the middle, and then the commercial office space adjacent to the parkway.
Okay.
And then the drive-through is on the eastern side.
Okay. What questions do you have for Eldon? I understand there's somebody in the audience. I watched the public hearing and when this item came to the Planning Commission and no one was there, but it looks like we do have somebody here this evening. If you'd like to make a comment, we'd be happy to hear your comment. Just go ahead and state your name for the record.
Yes, thank you. My name is Bryant Kanan.
Say it one more time.
Bryant Kanan.
Okay.
Appreciate you allowing me to speak. I'm residing at 1141 Graham Manor in Washington City. I'm obviously in the neighborhood, and I'm somewhat representing many neighbors that did not attend the planning commission meeting. I was actually out of town on a business training meeting and wasn't able to attend. I failed to send an email with an explanation of my thoughts and comments, but I was hoping to be able to speak.
Yeah,
here
here's your
today.
opportunity.
So originally I attended the first planning commission meeting on the rezoning from the original zoning designation of civic for this area, as well as open space. And I was, of course, concerned with that change. I didn't think it was a good change to go from civic to PUD, but it was approved. I think the focus was on losing open space at that time. Not many people were aware, I think, of the big change of the from civic to PUD. Also at that time, I was not informed that it would be PUDC. It was open to just PUD, and it was left undecided. It was going to be determined at a later time, and I was under the impression that it would be announced, that we could speak on what it was changed to, so specific.
And Drew, take note of that. I want you to address that in a minute.
Also, during the last planning commission, it was, from my understanding, 3-2, not 3-1 against, or 4, I should say.
3-1. I just watched it again this afternoon.
3-1?
Yes,
Okay.
because
I
one
thought there
commissioner
was
was gone.
So it didn't count. It didn't count.
That was 3-1. I watched it today.
Okay, I thought it was his was nay when he was not here.
But that's okay. I didn't want to ruin your train of thought. This is your opportunity to speak, Brian.
Yeah. So that was why I was confused by the 3-1. But if that's what it was, I thought it was 3-2. So yeah, it doesn't make sense to me that we would make such a drastic change from civic and open space to such a dense commercial development, especially amongst this type of neighborhood. I understand the need for storage. It just does not seem like the right place, especially in its location, proximity to the cross intersection of Parkway and Main Street. It seems like it would be better fitted somewhere else. It also seems that there is a lot more open space that was cut away than originally was shown in the original planning commission meeting where it was approved for the zoning change. There was no information set out. Is it required for a plat to be done for boundaries of this change where, the open space is cut back? I understand it's now undetermined space. It's yet to be determined. Open space is considered that. I think that was kind of a change in the way that's described during that meeting. It was decided that, but yeah, so at the time, we weren't given a good explanation and sense on what that is to be platted, how much area will be zoned for PUD. And so it's very vague.
So we stay right there for just a minute. Drew, is what he's maybe referring to was this a general plan amendment?
General plan amendment, not a zone change, yeah.
The general plan, this area PUD, which doesn't have a specific
not at
commercial
that time.
or residential, so.
Yeah, we just designate it, and that just means
So the land use designation went to PUD.
They can only ask for PUD in a general plan designated, so they couldn't come and ask for C2 or C3 or C1. It would have to be a plan unit development.
Can you just pull up the current zoning map so we can see where the current AP R16 and open space is and that the neighbor is referring to there? And we recognize that that's the current zoning and that the land use designation that you're referring to, the PUD, would be the future use, and that's the basis upon which the applicant's bringing this forward now as PUDC. But it would be helpful, I think, to add context to you to see what the current zoning is.
So the blue is what's considered administrative professional. This is a PUD residential townhome project. Open space, or yet to be, it should be yet to be determined on that. I haven't pulled that over, but so pretty much the blue area that we see is almost what's being proposed in the area of use.
What was the civic? Do you know what?
Civic is a general plan designation.
Okay, so this was that was from a civic general plan to PUD?
Yes, it might still, but
Was this the area that was at one time going to be a cemetery?
Possible cemetery, but it never came to fruition. Yeah, Sitla offered that as a proposal for a future cemetery a couple of years back, Mayor, I think when you were, maybe even as a planning commissioner, that was talked about once. So, but here's what the general plan is after that approval. This is, of course, the not yet determined. This one probably should have stayed open space because it's a wash. And, but you can kind of see where that blue was. Even if I turn on, let me see if the zoning might, yeah, that works out good. So you can see the area that was designated and given is almost identical. That blue you can barely see hanging off here, that's that administrative professional. So the area that they're proposing fits with what that current is, if that helps make sense. So the area down below is still pretty much what it is and what it's going to be as part of that proposal. So I hope that would be a little helpful there for you as well.
Question on the administrative professional, was that zoned to be that way? Because it was civic, so how did it change to the AP?
You pull the zoning map back up.
It's been AP for years.
So it was changed from the general plan of civic to?
No, general plan and zoning are two different things. They don't cross, other than that I can't ask for a zone change unless the general plan designation allows me to ask for that specific zone change.
So at one point it was a zone change to AP?
Yeah, it was changed to AP year. It's been that way I think as long as I've worked here for 18 years.
Okay.
They just designated it way back when.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking at the general plan from 2017 and it shows that it's civic, so I wasn't.
That's right. And that's what it was until this last one, the meeting you talked about that you showed up to.
It was civic.
So
it was civic back then. It got changed to and the
PUD.
council approved it to PUD.
So it was never AP then?
Yeah.
So again, you're crossing those.
General plan, I got it.
Yeah, we got to
General
keep.
plan, it was civic.
Is there
and
any
changed.
final public comments there?
Yeah.
We'll finish that up. Go ahead with any final public comment that you have there.
That's pretty much it. It's
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would just refer back to the general plan.
You got us looking at the history of the parcel, and I think that was the point that you were making there.
Yeah, and just how it relates, the general plan relates to it, and the sections of the general plan seem to speak to this type of area and how it's being changed.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. Is the applicant or applicant's representative here? Applicant Greg Whitehead, come on forward and
step up to the bar. I've been holding that one back. So, okay, I just wanted, before we get here, I think every time I come and present to the city, I always have the same thought, which is my wife's made dinner and she's waiting for me. And then I always have sympathy for everybody that sits up here. It's a labor of love. And I'm really glad when I ran for city council that I lost. So just for the record, I appreciate what you guys do.
Wait, your wife makes dinner?
Yeah.
No, teasing. My wife is great.
So-
If you heard that, she is wonderful.
My wife doesn't make dinner on Wednesday nights.
It's Taco Wednesday for tonight. So.
Maybe we'll start questions for the applicant.
So they can be for the applicant or whoever. I think everyone knows I'm involved on the north side of the road with the Salente development. The concern I have is it's just wall-to-wall buildings or parking lot in this area. There's no setback. I know Salente has a 60-foot setback to their fence off the parkway. There's a trail that meanders. I just feel like it's just, hey, this is just a standard commercial district right there, and I don't like the look. I think it's too much wall-to-wall asphalt and buildings without any breakup or those are my things that I'm seeing that makes me concerned.
Yeah.
Is that, and I am a little concerned about, I see that you've got your minimum. It sounds like you worked with the power department on the 28-foot, but it's a 28-foot landscape and power easement.
Yeah.
And so the landscaping is jogging, but only where the power poles are is what I can tell. And so I just feel like we're pushing it too far for what we have here. And so that's my concern to you as a question.
Sure.
You're literally wrapping it with storage units, man caves in the middle, and office in the front. The office looks good. I just feels like we're trying to put too much in a space without, this is a nice area, and I hate to cram it in and it end up being not nice. I'm not saying the buildings look nice. I don't have a concern with the buildings. It's more of the layout and how it lays out. But that's just my thoughts for you to.
So I can speak a little bit to it. Salente has seen what we're doing and they like it. At least that's not the feedback I'm getting, which they haven't expressed any.
They have not spoken to me at all, just so you know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I'm involved because I'm doing the engineering on that side, and it's a concern to me looking at all the hard work we've done to make it a nice do. We just put a ton of money into a trailhead and a trail and everything as a city to make it look nice up there, and I'd hate to do wall-to-wall asphalt and buildings.
Yeah, that's fair. So there's a couple of things I think that should be said along those lines. Number one, when I was first looking at this parcel, I first came into the city and met with city staff and kind of said, okay, we're looking at developing this. Its current zone is, civic AP, but we're trying to figure out what to do with the piece. And it was kind of recommended to us. We really need commercial in the area. We don't have the corner. It's going to be multifamily. So we'd like to see commercial here if we can make it work. So what can we do? So we worked with the Parkway to see what kind of access we could get. And one of the drawbacks we had on this one was we can only get a right in, right out. So I think that it's efficient for sure. The site is efficient. We got about 60,000 square feet of retail. The rest of the use of the property was how can we still bring in some activity, some sales tax, some property tax to the city, and kind of make it a very efficient site, but still deal with the limitations of the right in, right out. And so that's kind of how this came to be. This was, I would say, working with the city and the staff in trying to bring what the community wants. Also, to keep in mind, this site does taper down, so it drops quite a bit. And so the reason we have the 60,000 square feet in the front, those 4 buildings in the front, and the reason they're 2 stories is to disguise most of this. So I would actually argue that from the Parkway, you won't really see the back side of that. It's going to be quite disguised. It also sits below all of the houses, so the houses will see over the tops. The design of this was specifically to not show the stuff behind the buildings, and that has been the intent all along, is to try to make it as tasteful. I want to keep this area really nice, so it definitely is on my mind, and we tried to design it to be that, but I can understand the point of view. But it does drop significantly throughout the site, so it'll tear down to the point where if you're on the road, you won't see the density from behind it. And just some food for thought. To answer to your not question. So.
Can I make a comment, Mayor? Can you speak a little bit to the phasing? I know we've talked about this a little bit, but it has 9 different phases, which seems like a lot for a project of this size, and then starting with the storage units and ending with the front. So sometimes we've had phases that people will come in and build a few phases, then they come back and want to renegotiate. So can you speak a little bit to the phasing plan?
Yeah, phasing's tough. I'll just tell you, PUDs in general are difficult. So it's hard for me to ever guess what the market's going to be unless you're going to come in and build a whole bunch of spec and hope, and then have a bunch of carrying costs. Financially, it would be very difficult to do. PUDs in general are a difficult thing to do. I have to come in and design a piece and guess that this is what is going to work. This project is, 7 years, 10 years maybe. I don't know how long this will take, and let's just hope we got it right. Right now, when you do a C1 or a C2, you at least have some flexibility to know who's coming and then kind of customize the build for them. So in this case, though, storage is in demand, and man caves are also in demand. So I think that those are the areas that will build out first. That's why they have the first phases. Now, we can be surprised by the market, and that is the hope. I could definitely see like a phase 5, someone come in immediately saying, I want to put my business here and I want to own it, and we sell a parcel and it moves, and we come in and say, hey, we had someone immediately want to put their business here, and we want to move with phase 5 right now. That definitely could happen. So, but it's really very difficult to predict. So this is me saying, I hear people asking for self-storage and man caves more than I hear about the retail, but that's primarily a function of traffic count. The phases 1 through 4 aren't really traffic count related. Phases 5 through 8 are traffic count related. And so as the traffic picks up on Washington Parkway, that's going to just build out faster and faster.
Mayor, may I make a comment? So just to kind of let you know what I'm thinking on this. So I do like the retail commercial up top with the, the drink shop or whatever that is. I like the man cave idea. I'm not really feeling it on the storage units in that location. I think there's a year or two ago, we went through a real process on our storage unit, policies and procedures and is there any, I know the man caves are popular. And I think in planning commission, you said those would be for sale, right? Like a condo situation.
Yeah.
Would it work for you to replace the storage units with more man caves? I mean, I would be more.
Well, it's back to the PUD argument, right? It's I don't know, is the reality. This is all market driven. I think that this is about the most man caves in the area that you could get. I would gladly come in and sell more. To me, that's not a big deal. However, I think that self-storage units are more in demand right now.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, I didn't come into this site thinking I want to come in and put a bunch of storage units.
Right.
Okay, that's just for the record. That's not how this began. There was so many limiting factors of this parcel. So it was how do we still use it and still get some efficiency out of it, and self-storage just lent itself. Number one, it's very disguised. You can't really see it. So to me, it's a great place for storage in the fact that people still need storage. You can't always put it in an industrial or manufacturing area. So
Can I make a comment on that?
yeah,
So I know you talked about that at planning commission, that they're hidden. It depends on where you're looking from though, because if you're in the neighborhood behind, they're right there,
well, they're down 20 feet.
But they're down, yeah. So I mean, it kind of depends on your perspective where you're standing. I know from the parkway, they're probably not gonna be able to see them, but from down below, I was just up there the other day looking at it, trying to get my bearings on the elevations, and I mean, they will be seen from.
I mean, if you're looking at them, then you're gonna see them. If you're looking at the view, you're not. It's not really.
Yeah. So.
Are you saying that the subdivision is low?
Hey, speak to the mic, Councilman.
I was just trying to get clarification on elevation for your site versus the site. But I mean, it's neither here nor there. If you're gonna do storage units, obviously have them shielded from view by businesses is an ideal way to do it. I mean, I've always said if people wanna keep their crap close, right? So storage units to be close to neighborhoods, that's where they're gonna get used. I mean, that's, people, you've got a fair amount of multifamily that's in that area that's traditionally who's using, facilities like that. So I don't really have a problem with the storage units behind as long as, you've got the retail and whatnot out front and it's presentable from the street. Only other thing I think you could really do there that there is a need in the market is some office warehouse. Because, I know that the other projects that, my family, that I've built and family members have, I mean, they have no problems keeping that full because there's such a lack of it. And that does.
These have roll-up doors in the back. These are office warehouse flex.
Which phases are you talking about? Office
5 through 8.
Yeah.
No, I understand, but the retail,
I mean, you have a retail component to that that's a higher rent, I guess, than like an office warehouse that would be, tucked back behind. Does that make sense?
Sure, yeah. I get, I
A
don't know if that
plumber
was
that needs a
permitted.
place to go in, he doesn't need a
Yeah.
retail place, but he needs to have an office, he's got a place that he's got to put a bunch of pipe on racks.
Yeah,
Those type of businesses, there's a huge demand for, might make sense in there too. And you might even have some of those man caves rented out by people that
that
want to try to use them.
could happen, and
That's kind of where I was going with the man cave. I agree with Councilman Belliston. There's a big need for, I could see a plumber going in there, buying a man cave and using it to store pipe and things like that. And I don't know, just for me, the feel be a little better there for that, something like that, rather than the storage units. That's just, so.
Well, Greg, let me kind of shift gears a little bit. So when the softball team was here earlier talking about San Bernardino, I thought of your dad and your little brother when we went
Yeah,
down and
I went and watched them.
helped your dad coach. That was a
I
lot
just
of fun.
watched the boys there as well.
Yeah, that was
Dixie
good.
Little League was there.
So you have your business concerns that you monitor closely. This needs to be profitable. It needs to be successful for you. I was just wondering from the city point of view, what we always like to look at is what would generate the best return for the city,
Yeah.
property tax and sales tax. Did you do any market kind of studies on this site where maybe there'd be some retail sales tax or some greater property tax type components
Yeah.
to this?
Yeah.
And what did that look like for you?
So so that was kind of the initial onset when I met with the city. That was, their first concern was how can we generate sales tax? I mean, that's a big, I'm doing a lot of projects in Washington City right now, and generating sales tax is always number one, basically. So in this case, this plan was driven heavily by the restrictions of the parcel. Right in, right out is a big deal. There's also an ancient fault that goes underneath a portion of the parcel. So we are restricted to the types of buildings that can go there. There can't be humans for 24 hours or sleeping near or any of that stuff. So given the restrictions that we had, we felt like the retail was great for property tax, or excuse me, for sales tax generation. Man caves are like second homes. They're not cheap. They tend to carry a premium. So from a property tax point of view, they are a decent property tax generator. And then storage is also. So from a tax generation point of view, it's actually a very good design. I think I would argue it's maximized.
But it was a challenging site.
It's a very challenging site.
And you've gone through a lot of iterations
Yeah.
to get to where you're at.
And there's still quite a bit of open space on the other side of the wash. The wash stays open, it gets cleaned up. All the greenery that's there stays. So I think it will be developed tastefully, in my opinion, obviously.
What did you think about what they were suggesting about maybe having more office space that you could rent, or to, that not necessarily that you'd need to have like the frontage, because some people don't even need that. They just need a place where they can work. They don't really need to advertise their business or anything like that.
I am not against any of that. That would have, what we're describing is essentially like a flex space with a yard or something. Typically that sits in an industrial or manufacturing zone. And so that didn't fit this area or this zone, but you could argue now that storage now also falls in that category. However, I think initially we were even open to the roll-up door office warehouse feel, and it was essentially rejected, saying that's not what this area was designed for. We want more commercial, more retail feel. And so, but I'm certainly not against that, but it would take a redesign. I mean, I'm into it like 50,000 already, so it's every time we go make adjustments, my engineers are sitting behind me. They like to hear that, but I don't like to hear that. So
I just
I'm
feel
not
like we
opposed
have
to it,
like
but it is a
limited
redeal.
commercial, and I really liked that we had that ordinance that, moved the storage units to industrial.
Yeah.
And so it's just
The only thing is
hesitant
I
to
can't
wanna-
get more commercial. If I could get more commercial here, I would do more commercial. But we're limited on the amount of traffic that can get in and out with the right in, right out. Otherwise, I would do more commercial, but I can't do it.
If I can jump in, Councilwoman Casperson, from a aesthetics from the neighbors or a cleanliness of site, your storage facility is gonna be a lot cleaner site. If you did it the office warehouse, I guarantee they got trailers that they gotta come in. I mean, we have a project where the office warehouse is directly behind retail, right? But there's always deliveries that gotta come in. There's always pallets that get dropped off, that get left out, or, you know, people will stack pallets up because they get so many deliveries. And so from a cleanliness of a site, it's gonna be a lot better. Again, I mentioned it because there is a big need for it. And you could do office warehouse, you know, on a portion of it, but you would still have to set some area aside for trailer storage for those businesses and forklifts and stuff.
I want to do one of those sites. I just don't know how easily it works on this site. That's all.
Did you have further comments on that?
Well, I mean, not every business requires a place for storage. You know, there's engineering companies that don't need to have a place for storage. It doesn't always necessarily have to be someone that needs to bring in forklifts and have storage outside their office. You know, some people just need a place where they can go work and not have to, you know, it's hard to get an office in Washington City.
Well, the 4 buildings in the front would definitely be engineers, and I mean, that's 60,000 square feet of office/retail. So you will definitely see that in the front of this development. I couldn't get more of those buildings in the back. I think number one, it would just cause too much traffic flow for what that entrance would allow from a traffic point of view.
So Greg, when you presented to the Plan Commission, you referenced Fort Knox on River Road in St. George. Another one that this kind of reminds me of is there's some buildings out on Sunset, right off Bluff as you go out onto Sunset. There's with some 2-story retail and storage units back behind. But what I'm looking at, and I leaned over and it's nice to have a land planner sitting next to you. I just asked about the fact that in the first 4 phases, there's no parking within the storage and the man caves, and you said that's common. There's not parking, but a lot of the maybe what you might say nicer storage units, facilities, they'll actually have an office and some parking there where a kind of reception, and then even the one that you referenced on River Road, the Fort Knox, as I recall, there's a gate or maybe a keypad gate. Can you just speak to the to the on-site management of 283 units plus man caves and then guest parking for people that are at the man caves and gates, those kind of things. Those are just some things that I'm trying to think through. What we want this to be a quality project, as do you.
Yeah. So there's two gates. It's gated on both access points to get into the man cave / storage area is fully gated. So I think there is one of them will show, but that is the gate right there. That line of the squares.
I saw that. I wondered. I just didn't know for sure. I didn't maybe dig into the legend.
All of the man caves have garages and driveways. So technically, I guess you could say they can all park in front of their own man cave. So that's parking for them. As for public parking, there's not public parking, but typically on a storage, you'd park in front of your unit, temporarily unload, and then drive away. Now, having said that, I don't think it's required to have any parking for storage, but if that was something where we needed to add.
I'm just asking a question. I mean, you see some that have like an office there, and the on-site sometimes lends to a little more
those are
upkeep.
Much bigger. This is a relatively smaller site, but and the truth is, I'm not a storage unit operator. So I did have a storage unit company that I had a group that specializes in storage do a full study and layout design. This is what we came up with, and so this is designed to a desirable storage unit facility.
These are all block with metal roofs.
We have the renderings and the samples. So they're block, but they're different colored and different,
They've got some split face. around, so they're nice looking storage units. They are.
But it's fully gated. You know, if we had to put an office in, certainly we could do that.
I'm not asking that, I'm just
Yeah.
asking you.
There's a lot of storage management now has shifted online. It's more automated than it's ever been as well. So it's not as required as much as it has been in the past.
With that new development going on up there, I'm sure you're gonna be full, all your storage units and man caves are gonna be
Yeah.
roaring full.
Storage is demand.
Well,
For sure.
it reminds me a little bit of the one out on George Washington Boulevard with a similar elevation to where that one kind of sits down in there, and Dennett built it out there on George Washington, right next to where the Wills Park's going, but is it called Majestic? Did you design that one as well? Yeah. That one seems to sit down in there, and the way that they walled it and landscaped it made it so it wasn't, it didn't stand out too much.
I grew up next to the Fort Knox over in Morningside area. I mean, I was born and raised there. I didn't even know there was storage behind there until I was an adult. And I had to help someone in my area, the neighborhood, move. And they said, we're going over here. I had to look it up. I didn't even know there was storage. I had never been in it. I didn't know it existed. And then I was standing in one of the office buildings. Then I looked back and I said, oh my gosh, there's actual storage. And I didn't even know in my whole life, so.
So Greg, one of the things that I've been thinking about, and this just goes back to the aesthetics, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, we planned at least a minimum 28 feet, and it doesn't look like you've given us that because you're trying to get more parking or whatever in there. For those office buildings, I just feel like we need to have some more vegetation on the front to help make it a nice place. And then at what phase would you be installing that?
Oh, the vegetation? I'm not sure. Do we have a, I don't think we can do any, I think it goes, you're talking about the very top along the street.
Along
vegetation.
Washington Parkway.
Do we have a plan for that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Rick Meyer with Bush and Gudgel. If we just go off the phasing plan, it would go in with those phases, but I guess it's up for discussion, being part of the PDC.
It's odd that we're doing phase 9 or whatever on the end, right? And so usually we,
Added a temporary landscaping strip that you can see.
where?
So right where the cursor is. So that's. Yeah, so we added a temporary landscaping strip to put that in before, because we're getting to those phases last, potentially.
Yeah, I'm talking along Washington Parkway though.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you're breaking it up and making it look nice in between.
Yeah.
Are you gonna mass grade the whole site at once, or are you gonna do a different grading site differently, or have you not thought about it?
We're just, hey, I have to get it approved before I even do construction docs or have any of that done, so I don't know.
I'm just wondering if it makes sense, what your thought was on your plan of attack.
I don't have that planned yet.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we could do the landscaping. We could do landscaping with the exercise of phase 1. I don't think that's an issue to me. I want it to look good like everybody else wants.
And I don't know how it works with landscaping inside the parkway. I know that we have a big right-of-way because of future reasons, but it looks like you're, in that exhibit that Drew has up, it's like, besides that it's the exact same plant 10 different times, but it's pretty, it's pretty weird, but it must have not been a landscape architect that did that drawing. It must have been an engineer, right?
It was an architect.
Landscape architect.
It wasn't a landscape. I mean, I don't think they do.
I'm just joking, because
No, it was
mine
that
would have
was the
looked even
architect.
worse than that, so.
These aren't cheap.
He had 4 in his template and he used them. No, the reason why I ask is because there is some of those areas in between the road. I mean, I can see it on your plan, there's a ditch, which and I was just thinking in between the ditch and your property, instead of landscaping right up to it, kind of spread it out. I don't know how that would work with the city property or not, just to help give a little more vegetation to help make it a nice place along the front.
I think regardless of the landscaping that we do, there's probably not going to be a ton of vegetation anyways, just because it's going to be desertscape and things, but, desert plants, sure. But I think it's more I think it's more landscaping than, I mean, it's a little deceiving. I think it's actually quite a bit of landscape when you get there. Yeah, yeah.
It just doesn't show that here. So that's why I'm asking the question. Which I get, I'm just asking, I don't know.
Out of one positive for storage units right there.
Okay.
Then all the people from Salente aren't driving all the way through town to get to storage units down south end of town, right? Positive for traffic. So,
Yeah, definitely neighborhood commercial always reduces traffic. Commissioner Coates, we can add landscaping, additional landscaping if we need to. I can't cut out necessarily more parking stalls because we're at the minimum. That would be a fairly extensive redesign, but if we need to add some more landscaping, say into the parkway or something, you know, that's something we can look at. But I think there is a fair amount.
Yeah, I just still feel like there's a lot of units in here, and like you said, you barely made the parking work. I'm not saying it met our code for the office space. Traditionally, we don't have it for the other ones. I just feel like you definitely maximize the site right there.
Like to use the word efficient.
I like the word maximize, and so
Yeah.
we'll just.
Mayor, you ready for a motion?
We ready? If you're ready, I'm ready.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve an ordinance for zone change request Z-24-01 from AP R-1-6 in open space to PUDC located at Washington Parkway and 200 East.
I have a motion by Councilman Belliston,
I'll second that, Mayor.
second by Councilman Ivy. Let's go roll call on this. We'll start with Councilmember Ivy.
Aye.
Casperson.
Aye.
Belliston.
Aye.
Henderson. Coates.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Bill, this is a good project, Mr. Whitehead. Okay, buddy, we'll see ya.
A quick question for Drew on that. That means those open spaces are dedicated open space, right? Because that was part of the PCD application.
In accordance to that plan, that's what it will stay, yeah, as that exhibit.
So they'll deed restrict those areas when they plat it? Just a question. Because that's what they're, I mean, I guess they could come in and read.
Yeah, currently the zoning on it, when we went to that map, it
Answers my question, Drew. It's fine. I just thought of it afterwards, so thank you.
Next item, 8C, this is consideration to approve an ordinance for general plan amendment G-24-04 from estate to very low density located at 2140 East Washington Dam Road. Applicants Rosenberg Associates. Eldon Gibbs is going to present on this item.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The applicant is seeking to amend the general plan land use map in the area located at 2140 East Washington Dam Road. The requested area covers approximately 5.03 acres. Current land use designation is estate residential. The applicant is seeking approval to have the land use designation changed to very low density for the possibility of developing the area into a future residential project. The very low density designation carries a ratio of 1.5 to 2.5 dwelling units per acre and allows for the R115 or greater zoning designations. The surrounding general plan are estate residential to the north and east, very low density to the west, and not yet determined to the south. Staff has reviewed the requested change and is comfortable with the proposal as it matches the general plan designation directly to the west. On July 17th, 2024, the Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommended approval of G-24-04, amending the general plan land use map from the current estate residential to the proposed very low density residential as outlined in this report and as shown on the exhibit. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Questions for Mr. Gibb? Questions for the applicant? Does the applicant want to sit or speak? If it gets off the rails, I'll let you speak, okay? Council, further discussion or a motion on this item?
Mayor, I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance, general plan amendment G-24-04 from estate to very low density located at 2140 East Washington Dam Road.
Motion by Councilman Coates.
Second.
Second by Councilman Belliston. We'll go roll call, starting Councilmember Casperson.
Aye.
Belliston.
Aye.
Henderson. Coates.
Aye.
Ivy. Passes unanimously. We should have put you at the front tonight. You earned your money. Item 9, report of officers from assigned committees. It's been a while since we've met. Councilman Belliston, anything on that end to catch us up on? You got a retreat coming up or anything?
We got a youth council retreat this weekend, so I get the opportunity to meet all the kids. But as far as anything that, I've attended, it's kind of quiet. Summers are always quiet.
Dog days of summer, I hear you. Councilman Henderson.
Mayor, I'm proud to announce that we had a celebrity show up to the Shade Tree.
Is he on his
meeting
bench?
Today. Yeah. I got to sit.
Ari Saunders?
Everything. Yeah.
Didn't make it through the paparazzi?
Was it not the best committee meeting that we have here at the city?
Not the worst.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all you have?
Councilman Coates.
We had Power Board and Solid Waste last week.
Speaking of Saunders.
I think Dick could give a better presentation. It was just regular business of what's going on in the city. Nothing crazy going on. At least the Power Board. The Power Board members are going to UAMPS, thank you, Mayor. UAMPS next week. And I think, is Councilman Ivy going as well? Councilman Ivy and Jeremy are going, so I'm excited. I can't make it this year, so I hope Ivy will represent. I got the kids that said they didn't want to go. Didn't have as much
football
fun.
Season.
Didn't have as much fun as Jeremy and I did last year, so there's not much to report on that. The Power Go. I think the biggest thing is people are seeing those larger bills because how much power we are using right now with this hot summer. We hit a peak load of 55, was it, megawatts? So it's the highest we've ever had, but most of its growth risen and the sustained heat where it doesn't cool down.
Did I hear something like July was 50% more usage this year than a year ago in July?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And a lot of it has to do with it's just not cooling down. Yeah. It's getting hot and then not cooling down enough, so you have to run your air conditioning a lot. On the solid waste board, we had a meeting on Monday. A lot of stuff is happening over there. The building, you can start seeing it being erected down there by the landfill. It's a little delayed, and they said it was delayed because of the metal studs, which surprises me. They have a back order on studs, I guess. So it's like half up right now, but I asked, is it going to be done by the end of the year? And I got a, sure, why not? And so I assume it's going to be a little bit after the end of the year. So, but everything else is moving forward on that. And then pretty much business as usual, the solid waste will be, they're looking at applying for the CIB funding for phase 3, which is the facility for the phase 3 of the project is the public can go drop off their stuff. Right now, it's right next to the scale house, but it's pretty unsafe and run down. So we're going to try to apply. It's $6 million we have to apply for that addition. We got $9 million before with 2% interest. So we're going to try to apply for the CIB and see what happens. We're hoping that they'll appreciate that because we originally went for phase 3 and they denied us that one but they gave us phase 1 and 2 at a great rate. So we're hoping to get that and finish it off. We'll see what happens with that. So I'll keep you up to date on how that goes.
Just keep asking.
We'll keep asking, and hopefully they give it. Again, I think I've told you all in the past, they really like to give a lot of their monies to the east side of the state because that's where the minerals come from and where they get their monies. But they've been really good to the solid waste board, and I appreciate everything that board does.
They're doing a great job chairing that.
So thank you, and that's all.
I'm not sure that some of those needed improvements would have come about without you. So keep up the good work there.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Ivy.
Oh, I had a really enjoyable, productive ride-along with a young officer a couple weeks ago. I don't recall his name, but had a great conversation. And, just so proud of our public servants and our public safety departments that they exemplify service, and I appreciate that a lot. Mayor, I've got a legislative policy on Monday that I'm going to kind of tag team between that and UAMPS, but we have a tentative meeting set up with Steve Waltrip regarding our idea about SITLA and the affordable housing and that kind of thing. So that continues to move along. We've got our 2 representatives that are really engaged with this and are working hard on getting a bill drafted. So it's kind of exciting stuff there, but like I said, there's not a lot going on in the summer. I think everyone did that last gasp to try to get their kids back to school before they got back to a lot of meetings and stuff. But looking forward to next week for UAMPS and for the policy. It should be really good.
Great job. Councilwoman Casters.
I don't have anything. I have some scheduled meetings coming up, but as for right now, I don't have any celebrities coming to any of our meetings, so.
I'll have just a few items, not celebrities, I have a few items to report on. I see this, a couple of guys in the back of the room staying awake. Appreciate you bearing with us tonight, but I just want to give a little credit to, Blake and John and the whole group there. There's some pretty significant public works projects going on. I mentioned earlier the George Washington Boulevard and Southern Parkway interchange. That was a really good accomplishment. That was a fantastic feat. But you also look at that sewer upsize project on Washington Fields Road that's going on to 2000 South and then 20 East. That's a great project. When I drove the new on and off ramps onto the Southern Parkway, I drove up to the Long Valley exit there by Washington Dam Road. I turned back around and I actually kind of slowed down and looked up on the backside of Washington Dome to see that 2.5 million gallon water tank that's taking shape. And I remember Blake talking about the line of cement trucks going up there to pour that. And it's quite remarkable. If you have a chance to look at that water tank, those are just, one of many projects they're doing. We're talking about back to school. It's cool to see the light, right on time as promised after meeting Warrens at 240 West and George Washington Boulevard. That's in. We see that new light on Telegraph. And then we see great progress on the Main Street underpass. I'm rambling a little bit, but just in kind of, before I finish up, updates on maybe some of my assignments. It's a stretch for me to call these my assignments, but just mention that I appreciate Chief Williams and his crew getting out in force where our students are going back and forth to school. We notice that. We know that that's your top priority. So thank you for help keeping the kids safe, and we have some work to do to keep doing our best there. That's all I have from my committees. We'll go on to the next item, City Manager Report. Jeremy.
I really appreciate being called a celebrity. I'm not a celebrity in my house, for dang sure.
I'll tell you, you get a few more of them mints down here. We'll just keep that celebrity title going.
But I am on YouTube a lot, thanks to the city, so I appreciate that. Couple items that you're probably aware of that the public is not. We do have 4 firefighters right now deployed helping with fires in Northern California. They're 2 weeks into a 3-week deployment and learning a lot and helping a lot, and we hope that they stay safe and come back quickly to us. I would also make one comment. We talked a little bit about, you asked how long until you get your project going, and it is great. We go through a lot to get these projects zoned and approved, but then there's a lot of work that happens from that point on, and it's been alluded to a little bit, but John and his group and all of our building department team, they spend a lot of time working on construction drawings and building plans. We had 4 projects that you'll all recognize. The Residence Inn, Panera Bread, the One Health Building, and the Ash Apartments that are on Telegraph, just below the Bella Vista community, that all received permits this last couple of weeks. And so it does take time. Some of those are they were approved by this body quite a while ago, but it's nice to see those going, and once they get those permits, then they get started with construction, so we get to see the whole thing come through. So that's really all I have to say. Again, I echo your same sentiment, Mayor. Really proud of our staff and the whole city team that gets these going with the developers to make our community grow. And there's some really exciting projects coming, so it's a lot of fun to be involved in. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Keep up the good work. We do have need to go to closed session for pending or potential litigation. I'll call for motion.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Casperson, second by Councilman Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
We'll move into closed session.
Nay on the opposed.